Global disaster. I have countless black technologies. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 1: Doomsday Disaster. Refuge Emergency Alert. The No. 1 space station has detected a giant meteorite with a diameter of more than 30 kilometers about to hit Earth. Human beings have reached the point of life and death. Former meteorites hit Blue Star, making the dinosaurs that dominated Blue Star completely extinct. Will humanity be able to escape this calamity this time? Major governments have launched response plans, and it is expected that before the meteorite hits the Blue Star, a space rocket loaded with a high-yield nuclear bomb will be launched to strike and intercept the meteorite. The government's backup response plan has been launched, and underground shelters will be built in every city across the country for people to evacuate. Red alert. It is expected that there are 15 days left before the super mega meteorite hits Earth. It is really a matter of time to cross from a peaceful world to such a parallel world of global disasters. Looking at the doomsday information all over the internet, Li Hao is also depressed. It's too Pit Daddy. Half a month ago, he finally became a member of the army of traversers and came to this parallel world similar to Earth. I thought that with the various entertainment works of the Earth in my memory, Mizzy began to walk to the peak of life and enjoy life in front of the copyist. As a result, who would have thought that within 2 days of his crossing, a global catastrophe would come? A giant meteorite is about to hit Blue Star. At that time, it will cause irreversible climate changes to the Blue Star, and perhaps human beings will be completely extinct. Under such circumstances, it is clear that his copywriting plan can only go bankrupt. However, fortunately, the east side is not bright, and the west side is bright. Just when he despaired of his future, the golden finger necessary for the traverser, the system, appeared. This system is called the Doomsday Black Technology System, and its main function is to assist the host to survive in various extreme apocalyptic environments. The host can obtain various black technology props or drawings by completing various survival missions to improve its survival chances and quality of life in the event of extreme apocalypse. The first task after the activation of the system is to build the Doomsday Shelter. With a small automated excavator from the system starter pack, he spent all his money and successfully built a shelter under his home. System, open the data panel of the shelter. Li Hao thought in his heart. The next moment, a virtual light curtain that only he could see appeared in front of his eyes. Simple underground shelter owner. Li Hao residence. Li Hao area. 4,300 square meters. Food storage. 1,524 jin, including rice, wheat, all kinds of canned meat, etc. Internal facilities. Bedroom, kitchen, bathroom, food storage room, vegetable cultivation room, power generation room, water purification room. Introduction. This is a simple shelter located 25 meters underground, and the internal facilities are relatively complete, but because of the wall shell is made of iron sheet of container house, the strength is insufficient, and in the event of a violent earthquake, the shelter is very likely to collapse. The shell strength of the shelter is still not enough. The strength of the iron sheet for container housing bought before is still too low. Li Hao frowned, a little helpless. Since meteorites are about to hit the Earth, most of the steel that can be used to build underground shelters on the market is controlled by the state, and it is taken to repair official shelters. Some of the rest were also robbed by major group companies, and he couldn't buy them at all. Time is urgent. He could only buy the iron sheets used to assemble container houses to build shelters. According to the information displayed on the panel, the strength of this iron sheet is obviously not enough, and the earthquake resistance is not good. Once a meteorite falls nearby and causes a violent earthquake, the shelter is likely to collapse on a large scale. At that time, the refuge that should have sheltered him will become his talisman. It seems that you need to complete the system task as soon as possible and get the automated metal furnace to upgrade the wall steel. Otherwise, a shelter with such poor earthquake resistance would not be able to live in people at all. Thinking so, Li Hao opened the taskbar of the Doomsday Survival System. Doomsday Survival, Long-Term Mission, Mission Description. The apocalyptic disaster has come in. Human beings are facing a crisis of extinction. Please try to survive in various apocalyptic crises. Mission reward. Depends on host survival performance. Settle once a day. Settlement time. 8 o'clock. Establishment of temperature control system. Mission description. Installing a complete temperature control system for the shelter can effectively improve the living environment and survival chances of the survivors. Mission rewards. Automated metal furnace can automatically manufacture various high-strength alloys by melting various metals. Crossing the apocalyptic natural disaster. Mission description. A giant meteorite is about to hit the Earth. Please survive the outbreak of this global catastrophe. Mission reward. Clone crafting pod, used to create clones. Red notice. There are 352 hours and 31 minutes left before the global catastrophe, meteorite impact. Note. The meteorite is extremely large. After hitting the blue star, it will cause global climate changes, and dust will rush into the atmosphere, causing the blue star to fall into the eternal night for hundreds of years, and the entire blue star will enter the ice age. The most important central air conditioner for the temperature control system has not yet arrived, and I hope the logistics can be faster. Looking at the red prompt at the bottom of the taskbar, Li Hao also had a sense of urgency in his heart. After the news that the meteorite was about to hit the blue star became known, society was in turmoil, and more people were unwilling to work. As a labor-intensive industry, without sufficient manpower, the delivery speed of many logistics companies has naturally plummeted. And if the central air conditioner he ordered cannot be delivered within 5 days, it will probably never be delivered. Because, the more time goes on, the greater the chance that logistics will completely stop. After all, there are only about 15 days left before the meteorite hits Earth. In 10 days, the state will gradually organize people to take refuge in official shelters. When the time comes, who will deliver it? Thinking of this, Li Hao is also a little unable to sit still. This central air conditioner is related to his survival safety. If he can't complete the task of establishing a temperature control system and can't get the automatic metal furnace to upgrade the wall steel of the shelter, then he is gambling his life by entering the current shelter to take refuge. In the event of a violent earthquake, he would almost certainly die. For the sake of his own little life, Li Hao immediately called the logistics company to inquire and urge. After some friendly discussion, Li Hao gave an additional 50,000 RMB as an emergency delivery fee. The manager of this logistics company promised to deliver the goods within 3 days. After doing this, Li Hao breathed a sigh of relief and set his sights on the inventory of the Doomsday Survival System. This inventory has no other function, and can only be used to store various scientific and technological props and drawings that store mission rewards, and items in reality cannot be put in at all. And even if it is the task reward of the system, once it is taken out, it cannot be put back. Chapter 2 Expansion of Vegetable Planting Room, Metal Procurement. Open the system inventory. A black gown-shaped technology prop appeared in front of Li Hao's eyes. Space Expansion Gown Owner. Li Hao Space Energy. 20 points, can expand 2,000 square meters of space. Introduction. Low-level space technology creation, including a disposable space energy block, cannot be charged. Adjust the output power for space expansion, and all excitation can expand the space of 2,000 square meters. This is the mission reward issued by the previous system. Build the Doomsday Shelter. A black technology prop that can expand and open up space. For how to use this black technology prop, he has already made plans. Walk to the vegetable cultivation room at the shelter. This vegetable cultivation room is only 400 square meters, which is about half an acre of land, half of which is planted with various vegetables and half by hybrid rice. Even if the theoretical maximum output is reached, it is only enough for Li Hao to eat for a month. Pathetic. To be truly self-sufficient, this vegetable cultivation room obviously needs to be expanded. Li Hao takes out the space expansion gown from the system inventory. Generally speaking, the more high-tech the product, the simpler the operation and use. As a black technology product, the space expansion front gown is naturally a fool-like operation. Opening the insurance, Li Hao aimed at the wall of the vegetable cultivation room and pulled the trigger. The next moment, an invisible spatial fluctuation instantly shot out and hit the wall in front of him. Space warp folding. In the blink of an eye, the vegetable cultivation room directly became more than 6 times larger. However, in fact, the floor space of the vegetable cultivation room has not changed, but after the space is folded and expanded, the usable area has skyrocketed from the original 400 square meters to 2,400 square meters. Groove. Black technology is hanging. Seeing such a magical scene, Li Hao was also a little excited. With the black technology of the system reward, his difficulty in surviving in the apocalypse plummeted. Time to work. Coming to his senses, Li Hao walked towards the dumper on the side. The space was folded to obtain 2,000 square meters of land, and Li Hao only left half to grow rice, and the remaining half to grow wheat. After all, simple white rice is too monotonous. He plans to grow wheat to make flour and noodles to enrich his food. Drive the earth-turning machine to reclaim all the 2,000 square meters of land. It is then sown and watered. By the time he was done, it was already 10 p.m. This long-term task that appeared this morning, the task reward is settled once a day. I don't know what will be given. After taking a shower and eating dinner, Li Hao looked at the Doomsday Survival task on the system taskbar with a hint of anticipation on his face. According to the above information, the time added for settlement should be 8 o'clock tomorrow morning. Set an alarm for 8 am tomorrow morning. Li Hao, who had been busy for a day, immediately went into the bedroom to sleep. One night without words. Early morning. Jingle bells. The alarm goes off. Li Hao opens his eyes and wakes up from sleep. Stretching. Li Hao opened the system inventory for the first time and checked the settlement reward of the Doomsday Survival mission. How is there nothing? Looking at the empty inventory, Li Hao suddenly frowned. If the scientific and technological props and technical drawings issued by the mission reward will be automatically put into the system inventory. Unless the settlement reward for the Doomsday Survival quest is not a physical item. Thinking of this possibility, Li Hao opened the task log. Doomsday Survival, long-term mission, today's mission reward settlement completed. Survival performance. Use the space expansion gun to expand the space of the vegetable cultivation room to 2,400 square meters and plus 200 points to reclaim 2,000 square meters of land, grow rice and wheat, and greatly increase the output of the vegetable cultivation room, so that it can provide more food for itself in the future, plus 120 points to eat 3 meals a day, steadily consume energy, and maintain a balanced body nutrition. Plus 20 points to go into a deep sleep, refreshed, and the physical energy consumed yesterday is fully restored. Plus 30 points. Congratulations to the host for earning 370 points. What are these points for? The system said. After the meteorite hits the Earth, the Doomsday Technology Mall will be open, and you can exchange your points for various black technologies and technology props in the system mall. The mall is not yet open, which means that the points are not useful now. Understanding this, Li Hao put the matter of points aside for the time being. After some washing, Li Hao went out to buy supplies. However, as the end approaches, few people in nearby supermarkets will sell daily necessities. Nowadays, almost all the daily necessities in supermarkets are sold by the state, and they are still rationed per person per day, and they need to be purchased with ID cards. Under such circumstances, prices began to skyrocket. Taking staple foods such as rice as an example, in the private market, the current price of a pound has exceeded 10,000 pieces, 1,000 times more than that, and there is no market. With such an expensive price, even if Li Hao takes out all his net worth, he can't buy much. However, fortunately, before the vast majority of people could react, he spent all his wealth and hoarded a lot of food supplies. In a short time, you don't have to worry about going hungry. He came at this time to purchase metals. Once the temperature control system was built, he was able to obtain automated metal furnaces to strengthen the walls of the shelter, and this process, obviously, requires the consumption of a lot of metal. Under the precautionary plan, it is natural to come out in advance to purchase. Compared with grain, which is a priceless and marketable commodity that is just in demand, the price of metal commodities has not risen so wildly. Find the owner of a metal manufacturing plant and buy 25 tons of various metal ingots at the cost of 20 bags of rice, 200 jin. After home delivery and clearance, Li Hao transported the ingots by forklift to the shelter's separate storage room for storage. Another 2 days passed. With the 50,000 logistics emergency delivery fee paid before, the central air conditioner purchased by Li Hao had finally arrived. He had already made all the preparations, and when the central air conditioning was installed, the temperature control system of the entire shelter was completed. Smoothly installing the central air conditioner into the thermostat, Li Hao immediately breathed a sigh of relief. The task is finally completed. Open the inventory. Sure enough, that automated metal furnaces appeared in it. Chapter 3. The wall replacement is completed, and the meteorite accelerates finally arrived. Li Hao's face showed a hint of excitement. The problem of insufficient strength of the walls of the shelter can finally be solved. Without hesitation, Li Hao walked directly into an empty room with thousands of square meters. This is the industrial workshop where he specially prepared to place the metal furnace. In the future, when he obtains black technology related to industrial manufacturing, he will concentrate it here. After finding a place, Li Hao takes the automated metal furnace out of the system inventory. In the next second, a silver furnace full of futuristic sci-fi style appeared in front of him. Automated metal furnace owner. Li Hao currently has an alloy formula. Memory alloy steel current production. 5 tons, 1 day. Introduction. Industrial technology creation can automatically melt and synthesize most metals. Only one alloy formula comes with. I don't know if it meets my requirements. Li Hao muttered, clicking on the information about the alloy formula. Memory alloy steel synthetic materials. Steel, copper, carbon, titanium, zinc, strength. 10 toughness. 13 introduction. The strength and toughness of this memory alloy are more than 5 times that of ordinary steel alloys, and it has a metal memory function, which can automatically heal metal damage within 10 centimeters. Awesome. Looking at the introduction of this alloy formula, Li Hao suddenly looked happy. The automated metal furnace comes with an alloy formula that perfectly meets his needs. The strength and toughness is more than 5 times that of steel alloys, and it has a metal memory function, which is simply the best material for manufacturing underground seismic walls. There are still about 13 days before the meteorite hits the blue star, so hurry up. Looking at the countdown on the system panel, Li Hao also had a sense of urgency in his heart. He needs to replace all the wall materials in his shelter before disaster strikes. Driving a forklift, Li Hao puts all the metal ingots needed to synthesize memory alloy steel into an automated metal furnace. Subsequently, the memory alloy steel was selected for production and the automated metal furnace was turned on. In the next second, I saw countless robotic arms stretching out from the automated metal, sorting those metal ingots into different areas for smelting and processing. About 10 minutes later, pieces of silver-white memory alloy steel plates were continuously produced from the furnace. The whole process is efficient and sharp, full of industrial beauty. Getting the required wall steel, Li Hao started the shelter's wall replacement work non-stop. However, replacing a shelter wall with 4,300 square meters is obviously not so simple. It's a lot of work. It's impossible to do within a day. After a busy day, Li Hao has only replaced less than 1/10 of the wall. November 12, 2020. With only 9 days left before the meteorite struck, prices everywhere skyrocketed to the limit, almost on the verge of collapse, and society gradually began to unrest. November 15, 2020. With only 6 days left before the meteorite fell, the original social order collapsed. Except for a few state-owned factories that were still operating, everyone was unemployed and had no intention of working at home, and a small number began to enter the officially established doomsday shelter under the guidance of official personnel. November 16, 2020. The streets were deserted, and the bustling scene of the past was gone, and officials began to organize people in large numbers to enter the completed doomsday shelter. November 17, 2020. At 1913. Li Hao holds an electric welding tool and replaces the last memory alloy steel plate on the wall of the shelter. Finally able to get a good night's sleep. Looking at the rejuvenated shelter wall, Li Hao's heart suddenly relaxed a lot at this moment. These days, he rushed to replace the wall, and finally completed the wall replacement work of the entire shelter. At this moment, the biggest flaw of the shelter finally disappeared. Even if a meteorite falls in the next moment, he can hide inside with peace of mind, and no longer have to be afraid of being buried alive by an earthquake. Counting the days, there are only 4 days left before the meteorite hits the blue star. With all the welding tools in place, Li Hao turned on the TV, found a national news channel, and prepared to check out the latest situation. On TV, the two news presenters are solemnly reporting the latest doomsday news. A large-scale parade and riot occurred in a bald eagle country. Nearly 10 nuclear power plants were attacked by terrorists. Nuclear explosions occurred. Countless nuclear wastewater flowed into the ocean. Nuclear dust entered the atmosphere. Citizens, please try not to go out. Do a good job of relevant protection. Do not drink raw water. A large-scale nuclear leak in the country of bald eagles. Seeing this amazing news, Li Hao was also stunned. Immediately, he hurriedly went to the water purification room at the shelter to check the situation. After all, a nuclear leak is no joke. Once you drink radiant water and get radiation sickness, without extremely professional treatment, you can only die in endless pain. The end was terrifying. After checking and making sure that the groundwater pumped in his water purification room was not polluted, Li Hao relaxed. Nuclear dust disperses into the atmosphere and flows to the world, and the radiation in the air is pervasive, and it is better to go out less in recent times. Turning on the camera placed on the ground, Li Hao looked at the gray sky and sighed. Fortunately, his materials are very well prepared, otherwise this period of time would be difficult. November 18, 2020. The sky is getting darker, and the nuclear leak seems to be getting worse. Radiation index of the external environment began to rise, and the vegetation began to show some signs of decay. November 19, 2020. Waking up in the morning, Li Hao turned on the system and suddenly found an extremely terrifying thing. The countdown to the meteorite impact on the system panel is less than a day left. Meteorites seem to have been influenced by some factor and began to accelerate. 2 days ahead of schedule. Li Hao was surprised and happy. Fortunately, he had previously spent all his energy on replacing the walls of the shelter. It was completed early. Otherwise, I am afraid that I will really be caught off guard by this suddenly accelerating meteorite. After a hasty wash, Li Hao logged into the internet for the first time to check meteorite-related information. In his mind, such heavy news as meteorite acceleration, there will definitely not be no movement on the internet. Sure enough. As soon as he got on the internet, Li Hao found a red warning banner that could not be ignored. Red alert. The meteorite began to gradually accelerate at 11:05 on November 18, 2020, and at the current rate it is expected that the meteorite will hit blue star within a day. Chapter 4 Meteorite Migration Plan. This suddenly accelerated meteorite may have caught everyone off guard. Li Hao frowned. He was already able to think of the consequences of meteorite acceleration. You know, because of the urgency of time and the huge amount of work, even in an infrastructure country like Seago, less than half of the shelters have been actually completed. The remaining half will be completed in 2 days. In this meteorite accelerated, which means that the remaining half of the shelter can hardly be completed. The number of people that can be accommodated will also be greatly reduced. In other words, a considerable number of people who have not yet entered the shelter need to avoid this global apocalyptic disaster on their own. The meteorite suddenly accelerated, quickly approaching the blue star, and the meteorite deviation plan jointly prepared by the countries should begin. If you can push this giant meteorite away and cause its direction to shift, blue star can survive this apocalyptic crisis. Otherwise, even if it is blown apart and the volume of the giant meteorite is reduced to pieces, a terrifying meteorite rain will fall around the world, resulting in a huge ecological change in blue star. Searching the internet for relevant information, Li Hao found that the meteorite deflection program of all countries had been officially launched last night. Thousands of rockets carrying large nuclear-powered thrusters into space. Calculating the time, it was almost time to officially meet the giant meteorite. Hope it succeeds. After all, surviving in the apocalypse is no fun. For the rest of the day, Li Hao kept his computer in front of his computer to keep an eye on the latest information on the meteorite deflation plan. Hours later, suddenly, another banner message marked in red appeared on the web page. Red alert. If the meteorite deflection plan fails, governments will launch backup plans to destroy giant meteorites with nearly 10,000 high-yield nuclear warheads. After the giant meteorite explosion, it is expected that a large-scale meteorite rain will be generated, falling to the ground of blue star, which may cause violent earthquakes, fires, etc. Please do a good job of protection as soon as possible! The meteorite deflection plan has failed, and governments will use nearly 10,000 high-yield nuclear warheads to destroy meteorites. Li Hao's pupil shrank and turned on the camera on the ground for the first time. 10 minutes. I saw that on the gray sky, a burst of brilliance erupted in vain, as if a new sun appeared in the sky. An incomparably huge mushroom cloud rises. Nuclear. Seeing this scene, Li Hao's heart was also shocked. And at this moment, the sky flashed with fire, and endless meteorite fragments dragged the tail flame and fell down. One of the meteorite fragments that was thousands of meters huge was explosion flying towards Shanghai City. Groove. It won't be so unlucky. If such a large meteorite fragment falls down, I am afraid that it will cause an unprecedented earthquake. Li Hao's eyelids jumped, and he quickly entered the console, completely locking the door of the underground shelter, and disconnecting the power supply of the shelter. After that, he ran into the safe shelter on the side. This room was specially built by him to shelter from violent earthquakes. The interior is made of flexible resin material, which can effectively reduce vibration and prevent damage to the human body caused by earthquakes. Boom. 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 Closing the door of the safety shelter, Li Hao sat quietly in the car seat removed from the car, his heart beating. At this moment, time also seems to slow down a lot. Why hasn't it fallen yet? It can't be that I'm mistaken, right? Actually, the location where the giant meteorite fragment fell is far from Shanghai City. In such a tense atmosphere, Li Hao was also a little apprehensive in his heart. However, next second, rumble. A terrifying explosion sounded, and an incomparably violent tremor came from the ground. Even if Li Hao was in a safe shelter made entirely of shock-absorbing materials, the violent vibration can be felt very clearly. This unprecedented earthquake lasted for several days, and the shaking gradually subsided. It's finally over! The magnitude of this earthquake is probably several times stronger than the Tangshan earthquake. Fortunately, I replaced the wall material early, otherwise according to the strength of the previous iron wall, it would have been completely destroyed under such a magnitude. Walking out of the safe shelter house, Li Hao looked at the intact shelter wall, and his face also showed a hint of happiness. This earthquake is really terrifying. In particular, the shelter he built was still underground, and without enough solid wall materials to support it, he would have been crushed into meatloaf long ago. After surviving the earthquake, Li Hao walked to the console, ready to restart the power supply, and restored the power supply inside the shelter. Doing some work on the console, restarting the previously disconnected power supply system, Li Hao frowned. Useless. After a successful restart, the entire shelter remains without electricity. The power plant in Shanghai City is gone. Li Hao guessed in his heart. After all, this big earthquake caused by giant meteorite fragments is too terrifying. It is also not surprising that the power plant was destroyed. Thinking of this, Li Hao also gave up his plan to use an external power supply to power the shelter. Only diesel generators can be used. He had long considered that such a situation might arise. Therefore, 5 high-power diesel generators were bought early, and a power supply room was built inside the shelter. Turning on the phone light, Li Hao walked towards the power room. Walk into it. 5 diesel generators are neatly placed in the power supply room, appearing to be intact. After some inspection, only one internal part was damaged and temporarily unusable. 4 high-power diesel generators should be enough for the time being. After putting the damaged diesel generators into the warehouse, Li Hao connected the circuit and started the 4 diesel generators multiply. 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 With the start of the 4 diesel generators, the power supply system was completely restored, and an incandescent lamp lit up, illuminating the entire shelter. After making sure that the power supply system was restored, Li Hao walked out of the power supply room to check the condition of the shelter. About 20 minutes later, Li Hao inspected the entire shelter and found that the damage was not very large this time. The outer walls of the underground shelter are quite shock-proof. This time the big earthquake, except for some electrical appliances that were damaged in the earthquake, everything else was intact. Put those damaged appliances in an abandoned warehouse. The meteorite has hit the blue star, and the mission of crossing the doomsday catastrophe should be completed. After Li Hao finished tie-dyeing up the shelter, he sat on the sofa and opened the system's inventory. Chapter 5 Compact Clones, Super 3D Printer Bed. Sure enough, a clone pod that often appears in science fiction movies appears in the inventory. Clone crafting pod owner. Li Hao limit production. 3 PCS, 1 day, introduction. Biotechnology creation can be used to make compact clones. Note: compact clones do not have emotions, nor the ability to learn and fertile, but they are absolutely loyal to the owner, proficient in various fighting and firearm skills, and extremely strong physically. Good stuff. Li Hao's eyes lit up immediately. He is now lacking in combat effectiveness. You know, when a global catastrophe comes, the old order has almost collapsed, and chaos has begun to appear. Without sufficient force, in the event of danger, it can only be slaughtered. In particular, he also has a well-equipped underground shelter in his hands. Once discovered, it will definitely be targeted. He needs more force to keep himself safe. This clone manufacturing capsule came at the right time. Entering an empty room adjacent to the industrial workshop, Li Hao decided to use this as a cloning manufacturing site. After finding a place, Li Hao takes the clone crafting pod out of the system inventory. In the next second, a rectangular manufacturing cabin made of some unknown alloy appeared in front of him. The interior of the manufacturing cabin is filled with a blue nutrient solution. Let's make one first. Walk to the console of the clone manufacturing pod. Li Hao set its manufacturing quantity to 1, and click start directly. I saw a protein-like embryo appear in the blue liquid inside the cloning chamber. In this embryo is growing rapidly at a rate visible to the naked eye. In less than 10 minutes, a humanoid silhouette faintly appeared. There are still 8 hours left before cloning is completed. Looking at the countdown numbers displayed on the manufacturing cabin, Li Hao temporarily exited the room. Sitting on a sofa in the living room, Li Hao opened the system and looked for the mall panel. If he remembers correctly, the Doomsday Technology Mall that the system said before was also opened after the meteorite hit the Earth. As soon as he turned on the system, Li Hao found his goal. This Doomsday Tech Mall has a separate icon on the system panel, which is extremely conspicuous. Opening the Doomsday Tech Mall, Li Hao began to tour the products inside. It's really scary. Li Hao also couldn't help but sigh with some emotion. The products in this mall are so complete. As big as Star Destroyers, Space Shuttle spacecraft, neutron battle stars, from vending machines, remote-controlled cars, all kinds of scientific and technological products, black technology, everything. There seems to be a chance of a 0.1% discount on the first purchase. However, it needs to be used within 12 hours after the mall is opened, and it will be obsolete. Looking at the prompt at the bottom of the mall interface, Li Hao immediately began to buy his favorite products. These days, he has probably accumulated more than 3,000 points. If you use 0.1% off, you can buy products within 300,000 points. Filtering out the products at this price, Li Hao's eyes immediately lit up when he saw a certain product. He already knew what he was buying. Super 3D Printer Bed description. As long as drawings and enough raw materials are provided, it can manufacture most industrial items. Price: 298,000 points. This Super 3D printer bed has an extremely wide range of applications. As long as there are drawings and materials, whether it is weapons or living objects such as toothbrushes, they can be made by themselves and self-sufficient. Simply the heart of industry. The importance is self-evident. Without hesitation, Li Hao directly used 0.1 discount to buy this Super 3D printer bed. Walking to the industrial workshop where the automated metal furnace is placed, Luan takes the Super 3D printer bed out of the system inventory. The next second, a futuristic sci-fi-style machine appeared in front of Li Hao. Super 3D printer bed owner. Li Hao currently has drawings, none in production. Industrial technology creation, containing extremely efficient 3D printing technology, extremely high precision, only need to provide drawings and raw materials, can directly manufacture most of the industrial items. The diesel generator that was damaged in the earthquake before can be repaired with this super 3D printer bed. Li Hao was a little excited. He checked it before. The broken diesel generator, only the controller part was broken. As long as a new controller part is printed with this super 3D printer bed, it can be repaired. Without hesitation, Li Hao used his remaining points to buy a drawing on some parts of the diesel controller in the system store. Since it is only a drawing of the diesel generator controller part, the price is also very low, only 20 points are required. Buying this drawing, Li Hao has 153 points left. Enter the controller drawings into the super 3D printer bed. Subsequently, Li Hao put the iron smelted by the automated metal melting furnace into the material boxes, the machine tool, and started the super 3D printer bed. In the next second, countless robotic arms and nozzles stretched out from the super 3D printer bed and began to print the controller. In less than 5 seconds, the controller part of a diesel generator is printed out of thin air. Bulwark. Li Hao couldn't help but marvel. This machine is too worth it. What industrial creations are needed in the future? Just print directly with this machine tool. It can also save a lot of points expenditure. You must know that in the Doomsday Technology Mall of the system, the price of the drawing is only half of the real thing. Taking the controller parts off the machine, Li Hao walked to the bin where the damaged diesel generator was stored. Referring to the maintenance manual sent by the diesel generator he bought before, Li Hao quickly replaced the broken controller parts, successfully repaired the diesel generator, and started it to connect to the shelter's power supply system. Put away the repair tools, Li Hao starts his daily work. Go to the vegetable planting room to fertilize and water, and check the growth of rice seedlings and vegetable seedlings. Go to the water purification room to replace the filtration unit. After a busy call, it was almost afternoon. It's been 8 hours, the first clone should be finished. After completing today's daily work, Li Hao walked towards the room where the clone manufacturing capsule was located with anticipation. Step into the cloning room. Li Hao discovers that the door of the clone manufacturing capsule has opened automatically. A muscular or big man walked out of the manufacturing cabin. His eyes were extremely calm, without any human emotions, like a robot. Is this a clone? Li Hao couldn't wait to click on the data panel of the red man in front of him. Chapter 6 Size Age. Competent clones, infertile, incompetent, emotionless, production number. 1 Loyalty. Die-hard loyalty strength. 15, can lift more than 300 kilograms of weight, 5 points for normal prime-aged men, agility. 13, can fly 100 meters in 9 seconds, 5 points for normal prime-aged men, skills. Firearms mastery, advanced, military combat arts, advanced, tactical command, advanced, vehicle driving, advanced introduction. Clones specially used for combat are born with extremely comprehensive combat skills, and their tactical literacy is equivalent to that of the top special forces. Bull Batch. Li Hao's face couldn't help but show a hint of joy. The combat power of this battle clone was really unexpected, and it was comparable to the top special forces. With full armor, I am afraid the 10 thugs armed with firearms can easily annihilate them. With such a strong clone warrior protection, his safety can be said to be guaranteed. But the amount of electricity greatly needed to make clones is probably too much. Looking at the electricity meter in the cloning room, Li Hao's face couldn't help but show a hint of surprise. 1030 degrees. To create a clone, it takes 1030 kilowatt-hour of electricity. According to the power generation efficiency of his diesel generator, this 1030 degrees requires at least 50 liters of diesel. And the total amount of diesel fuel he reserves is only about 1500 liters. Apart from the shelter's long-term daily power supply, there is very little electricity that can be used to make clones. Not only that, but clones also need to eat. One more clone is one more zoo. Once the number of clones is too large, his food reserves of more than 1,000 pounds may soon be eaten. It simply can't hold up when rice, wheat, and vegetables are ripe in the vegetable planting room. It seems that it is necessary to limit the number of clones for the time being. Then it's good to produce 9 more. A platoon of clone warriors comparable to the top special forces should be enough for the time being. Calculating the various resources in hand, Li Hao made a decision. After setting the production quantity and activating the clone manufacturing pod, Li Hao walked out of the cloning room with Clone No. 1. After some simple testing, Li Hao discovers that this battle clone can really only be used for combat. In addition, watering and fertilizing the seedlings in the vegetable plantation room will not. At most, you can only do some simple handling work. But that's enough! I just needed to fight and use clone force to protect myself. As long as the combat power is strong enough. There was no disappointment, and after arranging the room for Clone No. 1. Li Hao reopened the system tray. Counting up, except for the long-term mission of doomsday survival, he has completed all other tasks. The system tray should also refresh with new tasks. Doomsday survival, long-term mission description. The apocalyptic disaster has come in. Human beings are facing a crisis of extinction. Please try to survive in various apocalyptic crises. Mission reward depends on host survival performance. Settle once a day. Settlement time 8 o'clock. Food reserve mission description. Collect 1,000 pounds of food to strengthen the food reserves of the shelter. Mission reward. Genetically modified quick ripening rice. Energy reserve mission statement. Collect 1,000 liters of diesel fuel and increase the energy reserves of the shelter. Mission reward. Artificial petroleum synthesis technology. Sure enough, the system tray refreshes again with 2 new tasks. Both missions are collection class, and it seems that you need to go out. Li Hao had the idea to go out after all. The rewards for both missions are extremely practical. But before going out, you have to look at the situation. The place where the 1,000-meter giant meteorite fragment fell is near Shanghai City. Generally speaking, meteorites will be accompanied by strong radiation, coupled with nuclear radiation during a nuclear bomb attack. The radiation index near Shanghai City may be terrifying. If the human body is not protected, if it is in such an environment for a long time, it will almost certainly die. Thinking like this, Li Hao went to the industrial workshop, found a super 3D printer bed, spent 50 points to exchange for a drawing of radiation protection life support suit, and used the materials to print it out with a machine tool. In less than 20 seconds, a yellow and blue radiation protection suit appeared in front of Li Hao. Radiation protection life support suit functional design. Anti-radiation coat, oxygen circulation device, constant temperature device introduction. A protective clothing with anti-radiation function and human life support system can effectively prevent the invasion of the human body by strong external radiation. It should be enough. Li Hao changed the suit and subsequently, another one was printed and handed over to Clone No. When ready, Li Hao takes Clone No. 1 to the door of the shelter and turns on the camera on the ground outside the gate to check the situation outside. However, it is a pity that the camera seems to have been completely damaged by the aftermath of the meteorite. It was pitch black on the monitor. No way. Li Hao opened the door and walked out. The entrance of the shelter is divided into an inner and outer door, leaving enough buffer space to prevent the outside crisis from quickly entering the shelter after the outermost gate is broken. Closing the inner door, Li Hao took Clone No. 1 and opened the outermost door. After opening the door, an amazing coolness greeted you. In a short time, a thin layer of mist appeared on Li Hao's transparent mask. Wiping away the mist from the mask, Li Hao looked out and couldn't help but feel a shock in his heart. Snow. Snow. The ground seemed to turn into the North Pole at once, and countless snowflakes fell from the sky. The vegetation disappeared without a trace. The surrounding buildings are covered in a thick layer of snow. Lifeless, a desolate landscape. This is a drastic change in climate brought about by a meteorite fall? It looks like Blue Star may be entering the Ice Age. Coming to his senses, Li Hao reasoned in his heart. You know, the impact of giant meteorites on Blue Star brings not only terrifying explosions and earthquakes, but also the subsequent climate changes are the most terrifying. From the current situation, it can be seen that after the fall of the giant meteorite, the temperature of the Blue Star drops rapidly, and there is a trend towards the Ice Age. Once the Ice Age begins, the temperature of the ground drops to an unacceptable level. In such extreme cold, humans simply cannot survive on the surface. Whether Blue Star enters the Ice Age or not, I can't change it at the moment, so let's take care of myself first. Coming to his senses, Li Hao sighed and took Clone No. 1 to the surrounding houses to begin the work of collecting supplies. Chapter 7 Triplet Sisters. Sister, I'm so cold. Zhao Zuxi hid in the bed and shivered. Me too. Zhao Zuo felt that her whole body was about to freeze. What can I do about this? Seeing her 2 younger sisters being frozen, Zhao Zuqi's heart ached and became more and more worried. It's too cold. Since the meteorite fell, temperatures have dropped rapidly. Even if you cover several layers of quilts, you can feel a strong coldness. Coupled with the complete power outage of the power supply plant, the heating at home cannot be used. In this way, the 3 sisters will probably freeze to death sooner or later. You know, the weather changes have not stopped, the outside temperature is continuing to decrease, there is no sign of stopping. Although the 3 sisters can huddle to keep warm, they are becoming less and less useful under such a continuous low temperature of extreme cold. And their food reserves are running out. It's a pity that the unfinished Shanghai City shelter was destroyed by the earthquake caused by meteorite debris, otherwise you can still go to the official shelter to seek refuge. Feeling her gradually frozen body, Zhao Zuqi sighed in her heart. Suddenly, a trace of firmness flashed in her eyes. It can't go on like this. Must go out in search of fuel and food. Otherwise, when you are frozen and unable to walk, you can really only sit and wait for death. Making up her mind, Zhaozuki said her thoughts to the two younger sisters. Nope. It's too dangerous. Now it's freezing outside, and the radiation index in the air is also high and scary. You go out like this, Zhaozuo raised an objection, and she was not very optimistic about the idea. After all, it is too difficult to go out and find substances in such an environment. If nothing else, the terrifying low temperature alone is unbearable. Even if you wear a down jacket, it is difficult to guarantee that you will not be frostbitten by ice and snow. In such a situation, finding fuel and food is simply impossible. Sister. I'm not cold, don't go out, okay? Zhaozuki's snow-white face also showed a trace of anxiety, and hurriedly faced Zhaozuki and spoke. She didn't want her big sister to go out on an adventure. But in this way, even if we only eat once a day and save money, we can only last for 1 or 2 days at most, and if we don't go out to fight, we really have to wait for death. In the face of the persuasion of the two sisters, Zhaozuki did not waver at all. If you don't go out, you will either freeze to death or starve to death. Then it's better to go out and give it a go. Then we'll go with you. Zhaozuki and Zhaozuo said at the same time. Nope. Zhaozuki's face changed and she spoke. She didn't want her sister to go out on adventures with her. However, Zhaozuki and Zhaozuo also made up their minds. I'm going to go together. Just when the triplet sisters were arguing, bang. The door slammed open with violence. A man wearing a blue-yellow protective suit walked in. He was followed by a big man with strong muscles. Seeing Li Hao and the two break into the door, the triplet sisters were startled and confused at the same time. Sorry. I didn't know if this house was inhabited. Looking at the triplet sisters in front of him, Li Hao couldn't help but be stunned. He didn't expect that he would meet other survivors so quickly. It is also 3 beautiful and excellent triplet sisters. After knowing that there was a lord here, Li Hao had no intention of robbing him. After all, he came to search for supplies, not to rob. Besides, these triplet sisters don't look like material-rich people. Even if he searched thoroughly, I am afraid that he would not be able to grab any supplies. After that, Li Hao planned to exit with Clone 1. Wait, which group shelter are you from? Can you take us with you? Coming back to his senses, Zhaozuki hurriedly ran over and asked. His eyes were full of eagerness. They don't have much food stocks, and the weather is getting colder. If they could join the private shelter set up by those large group companies, these problems would naturally be solved and their living situation would be much better. Although with the nearly identical beauty of the 3 sisters, joining those private shelters may be prying eyes on others, but this is the best way to do it at the moment. It was obviously impossible for the 3 women alone to survive alone in this doomsday winter. I'm not from the sanctuary set up by those big groups. You're looking for the wrong person. Li Hao turned back to Zhaozuki and spoke. Alas. So are you? It seemed that he didn't expect Li Hao to answer like this, and Zhaozuki's face suddenly showed a trace of doubt. A personal shelter that I built myself. Seeing Zhaozuki's doubts, Li Hao spoke. It is not a secret that can't be said anyway. In a huge mountain and sea city, although there are not many personal shelters, there are definitely many. Then can our sisters join your shelter? Zhaozuki pleaded, with a hint of apprehension in her eyes. They're really running out now. It is not clear what Li Hao's personal shelter is, but it's obviously much better than their current house. At least it shouldn't be so cold. What will you all do? Hearing that someone wanted to join his shelter, Li Hao was also interested. After all, his shelter was indeed quite lacking. Combat clones are not up to other jobs, and at most they can only move things. To keep the 4,300 square meters shelter running, he spends at least 10 hours a day on routine maintenance. If the triplets were able to help him share the work, he wouldn't mind taking them. And knowing that this was Li Hao's assessment of them, and whether they succeeded or failed depended on their answers, Zhaozuki introduced herself without hesitation. Our 3 sisters are all master students of Shanghai Agricultural University, proficient in plant nutrition, and can improve the yield and quality of crops. Oh. You will all farm. Li Hao's eyes lit up. He is short of talent to farm. That 2,400 square meters of vegetable plantation is too much work. He spends at least 4 to 5 hours a day as a farmer. If someone could share it, his daily workload could be reduced by more than half. Very well, welcome to my shelter. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelas. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 8 Peepers in the Snowstorm. Thank you. Zhaozuki said happily. The two younger sisters behind her, Zhaozushi and Zhaozuhua, were also full of joy, and their eyes looking at Li Hao were also full of gratitude. Finally found a place to live. If Li Hao doesn't take them in 2 days' time, they'll either starve or freeze to death. Okay, don't waste time. You don't have protective clothing, so let's get in the car first. Li Hao pointed to the car parked not far from the door and spoke. Unlike ordinary cars, this car has a futuristic industrial aesthetic, and the whole is made of some unknown alloy, which looks extremely advanced. This is Li Hao. In order to facilitate the collection of transportation materials, specially purchased drawings from the Science and Technology Mall to manufacture radiation-proof snowmobiles. In order to build this car, Li Hao even bought a formula for radiation protection alloy from the mall. Of course, the performance of this car did not live up to Li Hao's expectations. Radiation resistant, the body is strong enough to withstand rocket bombardment, and can easily run on snow, almost perfectly coping with today's doomsday environment. With this car, it is much easier to transport supplies and rush to the road. After packing up their salutes, Zhaozuki's 3 daughters followed Li Hao and sat in the back seat of the radiation-proof snowmobile. Feeling the warm heating in the car, Zhaozuki's 3 daughters no longer shivered, their bodies suddenly relaxed a lot, and their faces showed a trace of happiness. Number 1, drive, go home. After the 3 women got into the car, there was not much space in the car. Seeing this, Li Hao also mentioned the end of today's material collection work. Vehicle starting. Radiation-proof snowmobile speed on the snow, as if on the ground. System, open the taskbar. Sitting in the passenger seat, Li Hao said silently in his heart. Doomsday survival, long-term, mission description. The apocalyptic disaster has come in. Human beings are facing a crisis of extinction. Please try to survive in various apocalyptic crises. Mission reward depends on host survival performance. Settle once a day. Settlement time 8 o'clock. Food reserve mission description. Collect 1,000 pounds of food to strengthen the food reserves of the shelter. Task progress 213 Jin/1000 Jin. Mission reward genetically modified quick ripening rice. Energy reserve mission statement. Collect 1,000 liters of diesel fuel and increase the energy reserves of the shelter. Task progress 881 Jin/1000 Jin. Mission reward artificial petroleum synthesis technology. 5 days have passed since the collection of supplies began. In the past 5 days, even if 10 clones helped collect together, they could not complete the 2 new tasks of food reserve and energy reserve. 1,000 pounds of diesel fuel is only collected to half the amount. The food is only worth collecting about 200 pounds. This is also the result of Li Hao's first sweep of several small shopping malls nearby. Otherwise, just by collecting supplies from nearby houses, I am afraid that the amount will not even be half of what it is now. However, Li Hao is not dissatisfied with the current progress. After all, those who go to the shelter, as long as they are not fools, will try to take all the useful things away. Food, in particular, certainly won't leave much behind. He was already very lucky to be able to collect 200 cattas one after another. Fortunately, diesel is not a rigid need like food. When ordinary people go to shelters to take refuge, they do not think about bringing diesel fuel. Therefore, the difficulty of collecting is much lower. It took 5 days to finally collect nearly 900 cattas, and only 100 cattas were left to complete this task. At the current pace, it can be easily done in another day or 2. However, the task of food storage is somewhat difficult. The surrounding houses have been looted, and if you want to complete this task, you can only go to the big supermarkets farther to try your luck. Li Hao thought to himself. In the past, the official grain and daily necessities sales points were placed in those large supermarkets. Meteorites fell early. It stands to reason that in such an unexpected situation, the grain stored in the sales point should not have time to be shipped out. The remaining amount should be quite a few. As long as this batch of food can be successfully obtained, the task of completing the food reserve should be very simple. Making up his mind, Li Hao decided to take the clone warriors tomorrow and go to those big supermarkets to have a look. Right now. Boss, someone was observing us just now. Clone No. 1, who was driving in the driver's seat, suddenly spoke. How many people? Where is it? Li Hao's face changed. He naturally wouldn't think that no one would lie or be mistaken. As a clone for combat produced by the clone manufacturing cabin, it is difficult to say anything else, and the skills such as combat and reconnaissance are full. The anti-reconnaissance consciousness is definitely more terrifying than the top special forces. In the small building in the southeast, there are at least 3 people. No. 1 spoke. Look in the direction No. 1 said. Sure enough. Not far away, in an inconspicuous small building, there were 3 sneaky figures hiding inside. Visibility around is low due to wine and snow. If No. One hadn't pointed it out. I'm afraid it would be difficult for him to find the traces of these three figures, and directly ignore them as a background. Where did these three people come from? Li Hao's brows frowned slightly, and his face sank. He wasn't naive enough to think that these people had good intentions toward him. Under such a global apocalypse, without order, the evil in the human heart will be infinitely magnified. These people are clearly eyeing him. Perhaps it was their swaggering collection of supplies these days that caught the attention of nearby survivors. It seems that the guns have to be made as soon as possible for the clone warriors to equip them. Without panic, Li Hao took a deep breath and made a decision in his heart. Without panic, Li Hao took a deep breath and made a decision in his heart. Firearms and equipment. These combat clones who are proficient in firearms can use their full strength. If it is said that without firearms, the combat power that those combat clones can exert is 1, then after equipping firearms, the combat power that those combat clones can exert is 10, at least 10 times more. With 10 heavily armed clone warriors in hand, Li Hao even has the confidence to face hundreds of armed thugs in hard steel. At that time, if those guys who were secretly peeping dare to make a move, they must let them come and go. As for now, he was sitting on a radiation-proof snowmobile that was strong enough to resist rockets, and the peepers even took out the RPG and tried to stop him from leaving. However, those people did not seem to have the intention to do it immediately. There were no accidents along the way. Back home, driving the radiation-proof snowmobile into the underground garage, Li Hao led the three women towards the underground shelter. P.S. Did anyone read the book? The data in this book is so bad. Ask for a way to flowers, evaluation tickets, monthly passes, tips, comments. Chapter 9. The plans of the warriors. Not far from the shelter. Three young men in thick cotton clothes watched Li Hao and the others leave. Then, he immediately turned and left. Run 3 blocks away, in a fairly large house. Step into the hall of the house. The flames in the fireplace were blazing, and about 30 adult men were surrounding the fireplace to keep warm. At the head is a strong man with a scar on his face. Seeing the 3 cotton-clothed youths returning, the strong man with scar immediately asked, "Did the group of people who drove to collect supplies figure it out?" "Almost. The gang should have a small shelter. There should be no more than 15 people, and I don't think they had guns on them at all." The 3 cotton-clad youths gave the information they had observed. Immediately, he said in an excited tone, "Brother Tiger, this is a bit fat sheep. As long as we can grab that small shelter, we don't have to suffer from freezing here. It's getting colder. Without shelter, the brothers are almost overwhelmed. Brother Tiger did it." The adult men who gathered around the fireplace to warm up were also moved and echoed. Hearing this, Kim, whose eyes also flashed with a hint of greed. The temptation of a small, well-equipped shelter is too great. It can not only solve the heating problem, but also produce food with energy. This is simply priceless in such a doomsday environment. However, he was not carried away by greed. Instead, he turned to a man not far away who looked cowering and asked, "Li Fan, didn't you live near the group before the meteorite fell? Tell us about them. If you dare to lie, you know my means." Speaking of the back, Kim, whose tone became colder and colder. Feeling the coldness and ferocity in King Hu's tone, Lin Feng's body trembled, and he quickly spoke. Don't dare. Brother Hu, where do I dare to lie to you? I don't know much, but there's probably a shelter where the gang is. The owner of the house is called Li Hao, and more than half a month before the meteorite landed, I saw that he bought a lot of cement and steel iron, and he was definitely building underground shelters. Lin Feng said what he knew like a tube pouring beans. So what did Li Hao do before the end of the world, and did he have the ability to get guns and weapons? Qin, who continued to ask. It's impossible. Li Hao is an ordinary person. I heard that I was a supervisor in a small business before. How can I get such a strictly controlled item as firearms? Lin Feng affirmatively spoke. Although he does not have a deep friendship with Li Hao, he has been a neighbor for several years, and some basic information is still known. Very good. Knowing the detailed information of the shelter, Qin, whose eyes suddenly showed a thick color of greed. That's great. Such a small shelter with weak force but well equipped was simply a gift from heaven. This is not yet a move. I am afraid that the brothers under my hand will not agree. Making up his mind, Qin turned back to the 3 cotton-clothed youths and spoke. Old Fifth, you take your 2 brothers to find a building around there to stare, and report any movements in time. When they come out to collect supplies, we will make a move, and we must not beat one go. No problem. Armed with the guys and food, the 3 cotton-clad youths walked out of the house again and dashed in the direction of Li Hao's shelter, not knowing the plans of those peepers. After parking the radiation-proof snowmobile, Li Hao opened the shelter gate and took the triplet sisters into the underground shelter. Welcome to my sanctuary. Li Hao had a hint of pride in his tone. This underground shelter was built little by his own hands, condensing a lot of his hard work. Walking on the corridor of the shelter, the triplet sisters were as if Grandma Liu had entered the Grandview garden. Their eyes widened and they were surprised. They had thought Li Hao's personal shelter would be rudimentary. Unexpectedly, it turned out to be so perfect. There are a range of facilities such as protective facilities, thermostatic systems, vegetable planting rooms, etc. Compared to this well-equipped underground shelter, the house they lived in was rubbish. There is simply no place to compare with it. You built this shelter personally? Zhao Zuki couldn't help but ask in surprise. If she didn't know the details, she would believe that this underground shelter was carefully built by a large group company or even the official. Too professional, too perfect. Of course. Li Hao replied casually. Taking the triplets to the housing area of the underground shelter, Li Hao pointed to the room behind him and said, "This 135 square meter room is where your 3 sisters will live in the future. Starting tomorrow, you will take over the cultivation of crops on the vegetable plantation, no problem." The triplets all nodded, indicating that they understood. They know that if they want to stay in this safe and comfortable shelter for a long time, they must show their worth. There were also industrial workshops and biological laboratories, where the cloning capsules are placed, that are off limits. Other than that, you can move around as much as you like. As if remembering something, Li Hao warned the triplet sisters. These 2 places are the black technology props he currently owns. Naturally, he couldn't have opened it to these triplet sisters. Otherwise, if the triplet sisters accidentally broke them, he would want to cry without tears. Of course, he is just a routine warning. In both places, he sent 2 clone warriors to guard each place. Even if the triplet sisters walked there inadvertently, it would be impossible to get in. Got it. Although she was very surprised that there were industrial workshops and biological laboratories in this underground shelter, Zhao Zuki did not have the mind to delve into it. After arranging the triplet sisters, Li Hao immediately walked towards the industrial workshop. Enter the industrial workshop and come to the Super 3D printer bed. In the past 5 days, except for the exchange of radiation-proof snowmobile drawings and radiation-proof allo matches, the remaining points have been accumulated and not used. This point should be enough to redeem the drawings of the firearm. Chapter 10 Manufacture of the M19 Assault Rifle. Open the Doomsday Tech Marketplace that came with your system. Li Hao quickly screamed out firearms. Laser guns, stun guns, laser rifles. The energy weapons that often appear in science fiction movies constantly flash in front of Li Hao's eyes. However, these energy weapons are too expensive, and the series of zeros behind them is obviously not something that Li Hao can currently afford. Even drawings are the same. Out of sight, out of heart. Li Hao sifted again and selected gunpowder weapons subdivided by the firearm weapon label. As a more primitive firearm, the price of gunpowder weapons is obviously hundreds of times cheaper than energy weapons. Among these cheap and affordable gunpowder weapons, Li Hao chose a rifle. M19 Assault Rifle, improved version, effective fire and range, 400 meters rate of fire, 10 penetration, 15 recoil, 5 number of reloads, 40 rounds in production. This is an improved version of the M19 Assault Rifle. The data has been greatly improved, the rate of fire is extremely fast, only slightly inferior to the submachine gun, and its conventional bullet penetration is enough to penetrate a 10mm steel plate, and the recoil is completely negligible for professional soldiers. The performance of this rifle is much higher than the best rifles in the world today. Li Hao's eyes lit up. This rifle is the best firearm he can currently afford. High rate of fire, high penetration, low recoil, simply not too perfect. Buying the blueprints of this rifle, he will not need to change the main battle weapon for the clone warrior for a longer period of time in the future. However, the drawing of this rifle requires 700 points to buy. I only have 667 points now, and I need to wait for tomorrow to settle before I can buy this rifle drawing. Closing the Doomsday Tech Mall, Li Hao walked out of the industrial workshop and towards his bedroom. It is time to take a break from a hard day today. After washing, Li Hao played a single-player game, relaxed and went to bed. Go to sleep. Sensed, the next day. Jingle bells. As the shrill alarm sounds, Li Hao wakes up from sleep. After washing, Li Hao opened the task log for the first time. Doomsday Survival, long-term mission, today's mission reward settlement completed. Survival performance. You complete the daily maintenance of the underground shelter with plus 50 points. You led the clone warriors out to collect food and energy, with a small bonus of plus 100 points. You meet triplet sisters on your way to find supplies, and you decide to take them in and share your work in the vegetable growing room with plus 200 points. You find someone spying on you, and to ensure safety, you decide to make firearms and strengthen the shelter's armed forces with plus 300 points. You eat 3 meals a day, steadily consume energy, and maintain a balanced body nutrition. Plus 20 points to go into a deep sleep, refreshed, and the physical energy consumed yesterday is fully restored. plus 30 points. Congratulations to the host for earning 700 points. Great artist! I didn't expect to get 700 points in the settlement yesterday. Looking at this number, Li Hao's face couldn't help but show a hint of joy. Counting these points, the number of points in his hand has reached 1,367 points. Instantly become abundant. Without hesitation, Li Hao directly took these 700 points to buy the M19 assault rifle, improved version, drawing selected yesterday. In an instant, the drawings of the M19 assault rifle, improved version, were entered into the drawing library of the Super 3D printer bed. Finally you can make firearms. Li Hao smiled excitedly. This means that after today, the force of the shelter will be greatly improved. Suppressing the excitement in his heart, Li Hao couldn't wait to open the operation panel of the Super 3D printer bed. Skipping the other manufacturing options, Li Hao clicked to check the newly appeared M19 assault rifle, improved version, manufacturing options. According to the above, it takes 5 kilograms of steel to create a modified version of the M19 assault rifle. It is also possible to replace it with memory alloy steel. Even the quality will be much better, and it also comes with the automatic repair function of memory metal. It's not difficult. Compared to food and energy, access to steel could not be simpler. Now the streets of uninhabited cities are littered with abandoned cars. Pull back a few random cars and melt them in an automated metal furnace to obtain a large amount of steel resources. The steel reserves in his metal warehouse are now abundant. Just as Li Hao was about to start making firearms. By the way, there are still 667 points, just by the special body armor drawings and the bullet drawings of the M19 assault rifle. As if remembering something, Li Hao opened the Doomsday Tech Mall again. After all, firearms alone are clearly not enough. There were no bullets, and the firearm was nothing more than a burning stick. As for special body armor, this life-saving artifact is obviously no less important than firearms. When there are enough points, it is natural to buy them all. Points, 300 points, 100 in an instant. Drawings of special body armor and 7.62mm universal rifle cartridges, improved version, were entered into the Super 3D printer bed. Let's first build 20 M19 assault rifles, 20 pieces of special body armor, and 50,000 rounds of 7.62mm general purpose rifle ammunition. More can be stocked, saving time when you need to use it later. After setting the quantity to be manufactured, Li Hao clicked Start Manufacturing on the operator display. Drip. 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 The Super 3D printer bed suddenly started to start, and 3 production lines were divided to manufacture rifles, bullets, and body armor at the same time. As a black technology product, the Super 3D printer bed can produce up to 10 different items at the same time. After about 2 minutes, the first products came off the production line. The most eye-catching is the improved version of the M19 assault rifle. It is black throughout, about half a meter long, and shimmers with an icy metallic sheen under the light of the incandescent lamp overhead. People can tell at a glance that this is a sophisticated and cold-killing weapon. In addition, there is a box of 7.62mm universal bullets on the side, as well as an extremely heavy special body armor. It's finally done. Seeing this, Li Hao also had a hint of excitement on his face, walked over quickly, picked it up and played with it. No way, every man has a restless violent factor in his blood, and he naturally has a great interest in that violent killing weapon of firearms. Li Hao is no exception. It is just that before the end of the world, Xiaogo's control of firearms was extremely strict, and there was no access to them at all. Now that he can make a firearm and use it with his own hands, how can he not be excited? Chapter 11 Killing Weapon, Kinhua number 039. Backhand. With these firearms, the force of the shelter suddenly has a huge qualitative change. If those peepers dare to come, when the time comes, loading the M19 assault rifle in his hand, Li Hao's eyes flashed a cold color. Feeling the cold metal texture, Li Hao immediately wanted to try the power of this assault rifle. Although he had seen its property parameters in detail when he purchased the drawings before, after all, he had not tried it himself, and he did not have a more intuitive impression. According to the previous panel information, as an improved version of the firearm, the performance of the M19 assault rifle has been greatly improved. Compared with the original, this rifle has a considerable degree of optimization in range, rate of fire, penetration, and recoil. The effective fire and range reaches an astonishing 400 meters. The rate of fire is only slightly weaker than that of a submachine gun, and the theoretical discharge speed can reach 1150 m/s. In terms of penetration, it can penetrate 10 mm steel plates, which is enough to easily penetrate the doubting tank of Sakura country during World War II. You can imagine how powerful it is. Once hit, it is either dead or injured. What is even rarer is that its recoil is not great. Even during the assault, it does not affect the shooting of soldiers. Such a high-performance firearm, Li Hao naturally wants to try it with his own hands, and it is enjoyable. So, as soon as the idea came up, Li Hao immediately started to act. Dressed in a special bulletproof suit, Li Hao walked to the rather spacious fitness room with a modified version of the M19 assault rifle loaded with bullets. This area is the fitness studio that Li Hao built to maintain his post-apocalyptic health. There are all kinds of professional sports and fitness props such as dumbbells and treadmills. Clearing out some of the gym equipment, Li Hao divided the room into an area again, placing a human-shaped metal target 50 meters ahead. A small, humble shooting range took shape. After posing, a flash of excitement flashed in Li Hao's eyes, and he pointed the M19 assault rifle at the humanoid metal target in front of him and pulled the trigger. Bang! 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 A series of gunshots rang out, and gunfire filled the air. In just 10 seconds, 40 rounds were fired. Sure enough, the set is very small. Li Hao sighed. As an ordinary person who had never received military training, he shot a magazine and only felt a little numbness in his shoulder. Changed to a professional soldier, I am afraid I don't feel anything at all. Coming back to his senses, Li Hao looked at the humanoid metal target in front of him, wanting to see his battle results. However, the humanoid metal target is almost intact, with only a few bullet marks on the edges. Apparently, all the other bullets missed the target. Groove. Shot out one magazine, 40 rounds, and hit a few shots. Li Hao's face suddenly darkened. Although he had a hunch, such a record still made he is very unhappy. It seems that the marksmanship still needs to be practiced. Li Hao, who did not admit defeat, decided to train his marksmanship well. Otherwise, it will be embarrassing to go out with a gun in the future, but you can only be a master of body strokes. Called Clono. One is combat clones, each has advanced firearms proficiency, and is naturally an expert in the use of firearms. Almost where to hit. Under the guidance of professionals like Clono. 1. Li Hao began his own gun training journey. Bang. 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 For the next 6 hours, gunfire rang out at the range. Night. The temperature on the ground dropped again and became even colder. The cold wind howled in the dark night, as if to freeze the whole world. However, the house hundreds of meters away from Li Hao's underground shelter is very lively and brightly lit. At this moment, Scar King Hu and those subordinates were looking for fun. The sound of men's rapid breathing and women's waiting continued. Old 6, can the pressed box goods we secretly bought before still work? Ignoring those voices, Kim Hu put his arm around a gorgeous woman in scantily clad clothes and spoke to the young man on the side. In perfect condition. Brother Tiger, I just went to check and there's nothing wrong with the bazooka. However, 10 rockets were damaged by the previous earthquake, and only 3 can still be used. Old 6 hurriedly spoke. This batch of goods was bought in the early years, just in case. After buying it, I buried it in the ground and hid it, and I didn't care much about it. It was only now, after experiencing another super powerful earthquake caused by a meteorite fall, that it was taken out, and it is a blessing that 3 rockets can be used. 3 shots should be enough. Remember to bring this bazooka when we shoot at Li Hao's gang. After a moment of silence, Kim Hu opened his mouth and ordered. After messing around on the road for so long, he naturally knew the lion and rabbit, and he also used all his strength. To make sure he had 100% pockets of the small underground shelter, he had to take out all the hole cards to make sure nothing was lost. Brother Tiger, you think too highly of that gang. No guns and no one. What do they fight with? The brothers who have a complete range of guys. I'm afraid that one round of shooting can destroy them. Old 6 spoke with a hint of disdain. In his opinion, Li Hao's gang, who have no one and no guns, were not afraid at all. Although due to the extremely strict control of firearms in Xiego, almost all the firearms in their hands are pistols, but pistols are also guns. Having a gun and not having a gun are 2 different things. He didn't believe that Li Hao and his gang without guns could turn over some waves in their hands. You just do it. This small underground shelter had to be taken perfectly, without any mistakes. Kim Hu said lightly. Understood. Chapter 12 led the snake out of the hole. Following. After Li Hao washed up, he got up for breakfast. Today's breakfast was made by the triplet sisters. It tastes much better than he used to make it himself. Li Hao ate quite satisfactorily. And Shaziki's 3 sisters are not mentioned for the first time in so many days. I had a serious hot meal. Green vegetables, lean porridge, a fritters, a stack of pickles, a stack of green onions and tofu, such a plain meal, but Shaziki's 3 daughters gobbled up, almost swallowed their tongues. After all, people only know what is precious when they have lost. These foods were ordinary before the end of the world, but today when human civilization has been severely damaged, they are extremely luxurious. Keep eating. Don't forget, after eating, go to work on the vegetable plantation. After eating, Li Hao saw that Zhaziki's 3 daughters were still starving ghosts reincarnated, and at the same time he was a little amused in his heart, but he also understood their actions. Got it. The 3 women answered in unison. Subsequently, continue to fight with the food in front of you. After breakfast, Li Hao walked towards the range in the fitness room, where he continued to practice shooting. After a day of practice yesterday, he has initially mastered the shooting essentials of the M19 assault rifle. Not to mention how proficient it is, but at least it will not be like the previous body stroke, and the accuracy is much better. At close range, he can barely hit someone. After another 2 hours of practice, Li Hao is ready to get down to business. It's time to tackle that group of peepers. As the saying goes, only 1,000 days to be a thief. How can there be 1,000 days to prevent thieves? Li Hao, who felt completely sure, decided to lure the snake out of the hole and annihilate the group in one fell swoop. The heavily armed combat clones also gave him the confidence to do so. 10 clone fighters whose combat skills are comparable to the top special forces, plus the improved version of the M19 assault rifle and special body armor. I am afraid that hundreds of soldiers can be easily annihilated without injury. With such force, he is naturally worthy of anyone. Determined, Li Hao took 6 heavily armed combat clones and strode out of the shelter. Opening the 2-story mechanical alloy gate, Li Hao and others entered the underground garage and started the radiation-proof snowmobile. Black radiation-resistant snowmobiles rushed out of the underground garage and raced down the snow-filled road, as if they were out looking for supplies. Just when Li Hao and others were driving out, a small building hundreds of meters away, 3 young people wearing thick cotton clothes and huddling for warmth, when they saw Li Hao and others appear, their eyes immediately lit up. Malgobi finally came out, causing Lao Tzu to freeze for one night! Lao Hai, you are fast. Hurry up and notify Brother Hu to come over, and I will keep an eye on the group of people with the red. Old Fifth said rather excitedly. Okay. Fifth brother, I'll go right away. Lao Hai answered and ran out quickly. The remaining 2 stared at Li Hao and the others and quietly followed. A few minutes later, Old Black rushed into the hall of the house. At this moment, Qin Hu was admonishing more than 30 of his subordinates. Brothers, as long as we arrive at the shelter of those people, we can eat fragrant and drink spicy, and we will no longer have to suffer from the cold here. Qin Hu kept speaking, describing his life after taking the refuge, inspiring the fighting spirit and greed of his subordinates. Under this dose of chicken blood, more than 30 young people have high morale. The atmosphere was very lively. Right now, Lao Hai opened the door, rushed in, and said excitedly, Brother Hu. That group of people came out, and now 5th brother and Gratz are staring, and they haven't gone far. Brothers, take the guys, hurry up and keep up. Hearing this, Qin Hu's eyes suddenly lit up, put on a down jacket, took his weapon, and quickly walked out. More than 3 dozen other young people followed. Everyone was holding a black start pistol. The 5 youths following behind Qin Hu were even holding an Arkansas. One of them also carried a hideous barrel, which was an RPG bazooka. Under the leadership of Lao Hai, Qin Hu and the others soon converged with the old 5th class people who followed Li Hao. Where are the people? Didn't lose it, did you? Qin Hu immediately asked. I didn't lose it. The group was in the small supermarket in front, and I watched them get out of the car and walk in, each carrying a big bag, definitely collecting supplies inside. Old 5th pointed to the radiation-proof snowmobile at the entrance of the small supermarket, and said with great certainty, What a car. Solved it, gang. Those good things from today onwards, all ours. Looking at the vehicle full of high-tech atmosphere, a trace of greed flashed in Qin Hu's eyes. Brother, ready to fight. Saying that, Qin Hu took the lead and touched the small supermarket in front. And just when Qin Hu and the others secretly surrounded the small supermarket, they did not find that Li Hao in the know. One clone had already found their traces. On the 3rd floor of the small supermarket, Li Hao and Clone No. 1 were silently observing them by the window. After waiting so long, I finally took the bait. The prime of more than 30 people equipped with firearms should be the full strength of this group. Li Hao had a smile on his face. Not a big problem. The performance of those AKS and Black Start pistols is obviously not comparable to the top assault rifles like the M19. The 2 are simply not comparable. As long as that group of people did not have heavy weapons such as tanks and heavy artillery, these more than 30 people were really not enough for 6 combat clones to kill. Inform the others, let those people enter the supermarket and make sure not to escape one. Confirming the strength of his opponent, Li Hao ordered to the No. 1 clone on the side. For today's battle, he also purchased anti-jamming military walkie-talkie drawings in the system mall. ensure uninterrupted calls in such a radiated environment. Yes, boss. Clone no. One took out the walkie-talkie, entered the communication channel, and ordered the matter to continue. Upon receiving the message, the other 5 heavily armed clones also moved and occupied various positions in the supermarket. Just waiting for King Hu and the others to enter the supermarket, they began to block the exit and close the door to beat the dog. Chapter 13: Encirclement and Annihilation. Just as Li Hao and others acted, King Hu and others also began to quietly enter the supermarket, and immediately scattered to look for the traces of Li Hao and others. However, on the first floor of the supermarket, there was no trace of Li Hao and others. Both people are estimated to be upstairs. Old 5, you take 5 people to guard the door, don't let them slip away, let's go up and search. After that, King Hu took the other subordinates and walked towards the second floor. The moment they stepped onto the second floor, bang, 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 countless tons of fire spewed out. The few youths who walked in the front were instantly sifted into a sieve by bullets. Seeing his subordinates falling in a pool of blood, King Hu quickly lay down, his face also full of disbelief. There are guns. Li Hao's gang has guns. The firepower is also extremely ferocious. Such an important piece of information, that group of waste did not even probe out at all. Damn it. We withdraw. Knowing that he had been ambushed, and there was no hope of solving Li Hao and the others at present, King Hu immediately made a decision and roared. Saying that, he took his men and retreated towards the first floor. However, what he didn't expect was that when they reached the first floor, they found that it was not the old 5th class people at all, but 3 strange big men armed with assault rifles. As for the old 5th class people, they had long been corpses and fell in a pool of blood. Before they could react, the 3 strange men armed with assault rifles opened fire directly, weaving a dense web of firepower. Bang. 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 Yes. 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 A series of screams rang out, and nearly 10 more people fell to the ground. Retreat. Rewind. In panic, King Hu and the others retreated into the staircase passage between the first floor and the second floor again. And at this moment, a series of footsteps came from the stairs on the second floor. Apparently someone is coming down. What about Brother Tiger? There are people upstairs and downstairs. We are blocked, we can't get out. Hearing this footstep, Old 6 seemed to hear the death god call for his life, and asked King Hu with a look of trepidation. He never imagined that things would turn out like this. I thought that Li Hao had no firearms, they were all lambs to be slaughtered, but as a result, the lambs directly turned into tigers, and the firepower was terrifying. Not only that, but it also ambushed them and blocked all their ways out, making them unable to advance or retreat. If they don't think about it, they may all die here. Panic. There are no more than 10 of them at most. If we hadn't been blinded just now, so many of our brothers would still be afraid of them. Less obstruction here. Hurry up and bring me over with RPG bazookas. Lao Tzu is going to kill those guys with his own hands. Want me to die? These guys are not qualified enough. Calming down from the panic, King Hu said with a fierce face. Tiger, Brother Tiger, give. Old 6 trembled all over, and quickly handed the RPG bazooka behind his back to King Hu along with the rocket. Taking the bazooka and loading the ammunition, King Hu said to the subordinates beside him, those who don't want to die, they all rush out with labor and management. After speaking, stick the barrel out of the doorway, aim it directly at the outside and pull the trigger. Rumble. With a violent explosion sounding, under the cover of the fire generated by the explosion, King Hu and the others suddenly rushed out of the staircase passage and shot madly at the 3 clones. I want to break through the blockade and escape from the supermarket through the exit on the first floor. However, the gap in combat literacy and equipment between the 2 sides is too great. The 3 clones scattered and hid in the cover, holding M19 assault rifles and shooting at King Hu and the others, forming a rather dense crossfire network. Under such firepower, King Hu's men fell one by one, and they couldn't rush out at all. And just when King Hu and the others exchanged fire with the 3 clones, Li Hao also came down with 3 clones. Directly cut off the retreat of King Hu and the others. Surrounded by the clones, King Hu and the others did not set off any big storms at all, and all fell directly in a pool of blood. Even if King Hu tried to detonate the rocket in his hand at the end, he was unsuccessful, and was shot in the head by the No. 1 clone, opening a big hole. Clean up the battlefield. Li Hao's face was a little pale. As a peacetime person, it was the first time he had seen so many dead people. In particular, some of the heavenly spirit covers were shattered, and the red and white flowed all over the place, which made people feel extremely uncomfortable and disgusting. You had to get used to it. Li Hao sat on the ground and thought silently. Chaos is already emerging. After the global catastrophe, order ceased to exist, and evil thoughts in people's hearts were stimulated, and there will be no less scenes like today just as Li Hao was thinking. The clones also completed the battlefield cleanup, replenishing all those who were not dead. Completely eliminate the aftermath. Subsequently, the firearm and the RPG rocket launcher were all moved to the car. Boss, this seems to be the key to this gang's base. With that, no. One handed over a bunch of keys. 1293 Eucalyptus Road. Isn't this just 3 blocks away? It seems to be only a few hundred meters from here. Looking at the house number on this chain of keys, Li Hao whispered. Suddenly, as if thinking of something, Li Hao's eyes lit up. That's right. There were more than 30 people in this group, and the food stored should no longer be small. If you can get them all, you may be able to directly complete the system's food reserve task. Let's go to the base of this gang. Thinking of this, Li Hao's face suddenly showed a hint of excitement and spoke. Get out of the supermarket. Li Hao took 6 clone men and drove the radiation-proof snowmobile towards the Eucalyptus Road 3 streets away. Soon, Li Hao found the house with 1293 Eucalyptus Road. Go inside and take a look. Protected by the clone's archguard, Li Hao enters the house. What people? As soon as Li Hao and the others entered the residence, Kinhu stayed under the residence, and he opened his mouth and asked alertly. Seeing that it was all strangers, the two immediately picked up the Arkansas and aimed at Li Hao and others. However, they did not wait for them to shoot. The clones walking in front had already opened fire quickly. Raise the gun, aim, shoot in one go. The whole process takes no more than a second. Bang. Bang. 2 gunshots rang out, and the two had an extra bullet hole in their eyebrows, and they fell straight to the ground. Blood is constantly flowing out of it. Ignoring the 2 corpses, Li Hao and others used the key to open the door of the house. Chapter 14 Genetically Modified Fast-Cooking Rice. Walk through the gate and into the residence. Li Hao suddenly felt that the surrounding temperature had risen a lot. It seems that the thugs did a lot of insulation renovations to this house. However, this warmth measure, compared to the rapidly falling temperature outside, is only better than nothing. At most, it can only alleviate the chill a little, and it can barely live in people. As time went on and the temperature became cooler, the house soon became completely uninhabitable. No wonder this gang targeted me. It turned out to be for my refuge. Figuring out the purpose of the gang of spying on the thugs who attacked him, Li Hao didn't bother with it. After all, everyone was killed by him, and these things didn't matter anymore. The core purpose of his coming here was the grain stored by this mob. Explore this house and kill everyone inside. Li Hao ordered. Cut the grass to remove the roots. This group of people have guns and cannons, RPGs, which is obviously not a good stubble. He didn't want to leave himself in trouble. Hearing Li Hao's order, the 6 clones immediately took action. Lead by no. 6 clones quickly searched the mansion. Boss, all searched, no one inside. No. One walked up to Li Hao and spoke. Nobody. Li Hao was a little surprised. But after thinking about it, Li Hao knew it in his heart. The mob apparently all mobilized in order to rob him of a shelter. Only 2 people remained at the base. Then, find a place where this mob hides and stores food. Li Hao's group turned over the entire mansion. Soon a suspected place to store food was found. A basement. Walk in. Li Hao found that the basement had also undergone a lot of renovations, reinforced with reinforced concrete and divided into 3 compartments. Open the first compartment. The scene inside immediately startled Li Hao. Woman, dog, nearly 9 women were locked up in this 60 square meter compartment. The 9 women were covered in red woe, with only fear and numbness in their eyes, and no anger. There was no reaction to the arrival of Li Hao and others, as if a group of living dead. Obviously, these women were captured by the thugs and used as a vent. Under the devastation of those thugs, these women have become insane. Send them free. After a moment of silence, Li Hao spoke. These women have completely lost the faith to survive, and it is impossible to survive in this apocalypse. In that case, it is better to send them to liberate as soon as possible. With that, Li Hao exited the compartment. With several gunshots in the compartment. No. One also walked out of it. Reorganizing his mood, Li Hao opened the other 2 compartments and finally found what he wanted. Food, very much food. Bags of rice and canned food are piled up. It looks like it's more than the food in the warehouse in Li Hao's shelter. Good. Li Hao's face showed a hint of joy. With this batch of food, it is easy to complete the food reserve. Bring it all back. Li Hao ordered to the clone warrior. Although these clone warriors can only fight and cannot do other technical work, the most basic thing of moving cargo is still possible. Hearing Li Hao's order, the 6 clone warriors immediately began to carry the food. However, because the internal capacity of the radiation-proof snowmobile is limited, it can only carry up to 600 kilograms of food at a time. Therefore, Li Hao could only return to the underground shelter with no one with this batch of food. Let the remaining 5 clone warriors stay here. Return to the underground shelter. Li Hao asked Clone 1 to carry the grain to the pantry for storage. He walked into the industrial workshop, turned on a super 3D printer, and made radiation-proof snowmobiles. He was going to build a few more and bring all that food back at once. Anyway, radiation-proof snowmobiles are a must for travel in today's environment. Building a few more will also make it easier for clone warriors to go out on missions. About 2 hours later, 4 radiation-resistant snowmobiles disembarked from the machine. No. 1 in 4 clone warriors drove the 5 radiation-proof snowmobiles to the residence at No. 1293 Eucalyptus Road to pick up the 5 clones who remain there and their food. Another half hour later, Li Hao had lunch. 5 radiation-resistant snowmobiles returned with a large amount of food. These foods weigh more than 3,000 pounds. Even subtracting the weight of those tin cans is far more than the requirements required to complete the task of the food reserve system. Send all these foods into the pantry. Li Hao opens the inventory. Sure enough, a large bag of labeled seeds genetically modified quick ripening rice appeared in it. Genetically modified quick ripening rice type. Genetically modified crops growth cycle. 1.5 months introduction. This is a primary fast ripening rice cultivated by transgenic engineering, which not only has a fast ripening cycle, but also contains higher nutrients than ordinary rice, but its growth process will cause considerable loss of fertility in the field. Groove. The growth cycle only takes 1.5 months, which is at least twice as fast as the normal rice that ripens in March. With the seeds of this GM quick ripening rice, I no longer have to worry about the shelter not being self-sufficient. Originally, when I planted ordinary rice, I was able to grow 2 acres of genetically modified quick ripening rice, and the grain yield directly doubled. Li Hao's face was full of joy. This is his biggest gain this time. After all, no matter how much grain was obtained from that gang of thugs, it would be bought and sold after all, and there would be no more after eating. However, this genetically modified quick ripening rice seed can double the food production of the shelter, truly self-sufficient, and greatly increase the ability to resist risks. This bag of seeds needs to be planted as soon as possible. But this kind of thing doesn't have to be done by his own hands. Let No. 1 called Shazuki. Li Hao handed over the bag of seeds, and said lightly, "This is my latest achievement in the biological laboratory, transgenic quick ripening rice, which can mature once in 1.5 months, but you need to pay attention to supplement the fertility loss of the land. Once in a month and a half. Really fake." Hearing this, Shazuki was also stunned, and her eyes showed disbelief. She is a senior student at Shanghai University of Agricultural Science and Technology, and naturally knows how difficult it is to ripen rice in 1.5 months. Almost impossible to do. However, Li Hao actually said he did. You can imagine how unbelievable she is. Of course it's true. You plant these seeds as quickly as possible. Li Hao said lightly, without meaning to explain at all. Got it. Seeing this, Shazuki didn't ask much, and walked out with this bag of seeds excitedly. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelas. There you'll find the original version of this story, and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 15 Future Crisis. Next. Li Hao woke up from sleep, only feeling a little sore. Yesterday I had a hard day. Even after a night's rest, he felt a dull pain in his muscles. The physical fitness is still not very good, and I still need to exercise more in the future. Yawning, Li Hao thought to himself. System, open the task log. In the next second, a translucent virtual screen that only Li Hao could see appeared in front of his eyes. Doomsday Survival, Long-Term Mission. Today's mission reward settlement completed. Survival performance. You complete the daily maintenance of the underground shelter with plus 50 points. Subdecider led the clone warrior out of the hole, successfully lure out the mob who was watching you, and annihilate them all, so as to eliminate the future trouble, plus 1,000 points. After you eliminate the mob, you find 3,312 pounds of food in the mob base, with plus 500 points you get genetically modified quick ripening rice, which greatly increases the food production in the shelter, and points plus 1,000, you eat 3 meals a day, steadily consume energy, and maintain a balanced body nutrition. Plus 20 points to go into a deep sleep, refreshed, and the physical energy consumed yesterday is fully restored. Plus 30 points. Congratulations to the host for earning 3,100 points. 3,100 points. Looking at this number, Li Hao had a smile on his face. This point is not a small number. The source of most of these points is from the group of peepers with bad intentions. However, in addition to the points gained, his potential gains are not to be underestimated. Especially the change in perception. Yesterday's big war made him completely abandon the concept of peacetime and truly see the cruelty of the global apocalypse. Without the shackles of order, the law of the jungle reappears. If he hadn't had clone warriors, the ill-intentioned peepers would have killed him and occupied his underground sanctuary. Does occupy the magpie's nest. The law of the jungle eats the weak, and weakness is the original sin. Li Hao sighed, his face complicated. Homicide. In yesterday's big war, the chickens did not kill him, and he also carried 2 lives on his hands. But I don't regret it, if you want your own interests not to be usurped by others, force and violence are indispensable. If I wait for death, I am afraid that the end will be much more miserable than those thugs. Thinking of this, Li Hao is no longer entangled. The global apocalypse has just arrived, there are so many thugs, and I am afraid that there will be more in the future. In addition, the global climate changes brought about by meteorites have begun to be revealed, and the temperature on the ground has dropped rapidly. There are absolutely a lot of crises ahead, and I need to prepare more. Li Hao leaned on the pillow, contemplating possible changes in the future. The apocalyptic crisis following the global disaster is already emerging. One is nuclear pollution. The second is the Ice Age. Both were triggered by giant meteorite faults. Among them, nuclear contamination needs no further ado. There are no large nuclear power plants near Shanghai City. Although nuclear leaks in other places will have a certain impact on Shanghai City, they are still within the tolerance of Li Hao. And if the world enters the Ice Age completely, it will be a little bad. With -100 degrees, with the temperature control system of his current shelter, he can't bear it at all. It seems that there is a need to strengthen the cold protection of shelters and continue to strengthen the temperature control system. Otherwise, once the super cold snap hits, you may be frozen to death. Li Hao thought thoughtfully. Now the food aspect of the shelter is self-sufficient, and the energy aspect can also be solved after completing the energy reserve task and obtaining artificial petroleum synthesis technology. As long as there are no major accidents or disasters, there will be no major problems in the shelter. Therefore, preventing cold protection after the advent of the Ice Age is the top priority at present. After confirming the problem for some time to come, Li Hao got out of bed. Wash up. Li Hao prepares breakfast. Recently, his breakfast was prepared by Zhuzhua, one of the triplet sisters. A bowl of lean porridge with preserved eggs, a stack of dry red oil shoots, and a roasted chicken thigh. Although the style is simple, the taste is not bad. After breakfast, Li Hao walked into the industrial workshop and began to prepare for the shelter's cold protection. The easiest and most effective way to strengthen the shelter's ability to withstand the cold is to add a layer of cold alloy to the shelter. Not only can it enhance the ability to withstand the cold, but it can also strengthen the defense of the shelter. Thinking of this, Li Hao no longer hesitated. Open the system marketplace and start screening alloy formulations that have the effect of insulating from cold. After some searching, Li Hao finally chose a recipe called Primary Energy Defense Alloy. Low Temperature Defense Alloy Synthetic Materials. Iron, copper, carbon, titanium, strength. 8 toughness. 8 cold insulation. 15 introduction. The strength and toughness of this alloy are more than 3 times that of ordinary steel, and it has a low temperature defense function, which can isolate external low temperature invasion and resist ultra-low temperature of -150 degrees. This alloy formula can withstand ultra-low temperatures of -150 degrees, which should be enough. Without hesitation, Li Hao bought it directly. In an instant, low-temperature defense alloy is equipped with a recipe library that is convenient for entering into the automatic metal furnace. Click production. In the next second, I saw a roaring flame emerging from the automated metal furnace, fusing all kinds of alloys according to the proportion. After a few minutes, pieces of light blue alloy steel plates were continuously produced from the furnace. Calling in the clone warriors to carry these newly baked cryogenic defense alloy plates, Li Hao began to build the wall again. December 3, 2020. Li Hao completes 1/5 of the wall of the cold barrier. The Doomsday Survival, long-term mission, reward settlement is completed and 300 points are earned. December 4, 2020. Li Hao continues the unfinished business. December 7, 2020 early morning. Li Hao noticed a return to the signal during his lunch break. Although the signal was very poor, I was able to access the internet after all. Say goodbye to Li Hao on the internet for nearly a month, and immediately check the latest official information online. Chapter 16 Signal Recovery. Bimetal. The meteorite deflection plan failed. The backup plan was launched, and after the giant meteorite was blown up, a super-large meteorite rain was formed, which had a huge impact on the global ecology, and human civilization was severely damaged. Please try to protect yourself as much as possible, and the government will do its best to rescue the disaster and restore order in the future. Penguin News. Under the apocalyptic disaster, countries suffered heavy losses. Millions of people in Bald Eagle Country died in a major earthquake caused by meteorites, and Sakura Country was flooded by a huge tsunami caused by meteorites, and it was seriously affected. 1-2 News. Volcanic ash pollution warning. According to experts' predictions, the range of super large meteorite rain affects several large volcanic groups, which is very likely to trigger large-scale volcanic eruption, when a large amount of volcanic ash will enter the atmosphere, blocking the sun, and the blue star may gradually fall into a long night. As soon as the signal was restored, various media outlets also released news as soon as possible. The internet was suddenly filled with all kinds of disaster information. From this information, the seriousness of this global disaster is clearly demonstrated. Otherwise, the official will not say the slogan that human civilization has been severely damaged. After the superlarge meteorite was shattered, the scattered debris also caused a huge disaster, and the chain reaction caused was even more difficult to calculate. Like the country of Bald Eagles, millions of people died in earthquakes caused by meteorite fragments. Many shelters were even shaken to pieces, and the people inside were estimated to be able to wait for death. Also, some island countries. For example, in the country of cherry blossoms, the land was directly flooded by half of the huge tsunami caused by meteorites, and the casualties and losses are difficult to estimate. In those countries located in the primeval forest zone are not to mention. The forest fires caused by the fall of meteorite fragments alone were enough for them to eat a pot. It is really no exaggeration that global human civilization has suffered heavy losses. As for the country, the losses are not small. Many cities have been completely destroyed by meteorite debris. Among them is Shanghai City. According to the news information, most of the urban area of Shanghai City was destroyed by a meteorite debris of thousands of meters, and even the unfinished official shelter was destroyed by half, and the losses were extremely heavy. Fortunately, I live on the outskirts of the city, and I avoided most of the impact of the meteorite falling, otherwise I would have been hit head-on by a meteorite fragment of thousands of meters, and the underground shelter would not have been as intact as it is now. Li Hao secretly rejoiced. However, in addition, there is another piece of news that makes him particularly concerned. It was reported by 1-2 News about volcanic ash pollution. According to the above information, the range of superlarge meteorite rains involves several large volcanic groups. The resulting large earthquake is very likely to trigger large-scale activation of the volcano, causing it to enter a period of extreme activity. The large-scale activation of large volcanic groups is lead to a large amount of volcanic ash entering the atmosphere of blue star, blocking the sun's light for a long time. Blue star has since fallen into a long night. This change is likely to intensify and accelerate the arrival of the ice age. At that time, the entire blue star will be frozen and turned into a large ice ball. It seems that the construction of the shelter wall is a little faster. Li Hao suddenly had a warning in his heart. The construction of the cold barrier wall cannot be delayed. By the time the ice age arrives completely, it's really too late. Sooner rather than later. With this awareness, Li Hao was more attentive to the construction of the wall of the cold layer. After lunch, he immediately continued his unfinished work of building the wall. December 8, 2020 early morning. The automated metal furnace lacks metal titanium, and it is impossible to continue to synthesize low-temperature defense alloy plates. Looking at the results displayed on the automated metal furnace, Li Hao's face was a little ugly. The cryogenic defense plywood ran out. At least 1/20th of the underground shelter did not have a wall of cold. If all of them cannot be built, there will be loopholes in the wall of the cold layer, and the cold current will enter the shelter along the wall without the cold layer. There is almost no difference between the cold layer and a none. Nope. The walls must be completely built. As for the metal titanium raw materials missing from synthetic low-temperature defense alloys, it is not impossible to obtain. Li Hao's eyes flashed. The main material of the discarded car on the surface is composed of steel and carbon, and the metal titanium cannot be separated. Then it can only be bought from others. Thinking like this, Li Hao immediately turned on the computer and sent a message to an account with a note of the owner of the metal factory. The owner of this account is the owner of the metal factory where he previously exchanged grain for 25 tons of metal. Since he had a metal factory, the boss also built a fairly complete personal shelter of his own. It stands to reason that surviving the meteorite fall disaster should be no problem. As the owner of a metal factory, he definitely has a lot of rare metal reserves on his hands. Li Hao, Boss Yang, do you still have metal reserves on hand? I'll exchange food for you. It seems that this metal factory owner also happens to be online. Soon, it replied. Metal factory owner. Yes, but how to say the exchange price? Li Hao. A bag of 10 kilograms of rice, for a ton of titanium, in addition to steel and carbon, other rare metals are also at this price. Metal factory owner. Okay. How many tons are you going to change? Li Hao. 20 tons of titanium, 30 tons of other rare metals. In addition to titanium, other rare metals in the shelter are somewhat lacking. He was ready to take advantage of this opportunity to stock up on a little more rare metals in case he needed them. The owner of the metal factory: "Brother, big money, take out 500 pounds of rice at a time for metal. But now it's cold and high outside, I can't get out these 50 tons of rare metals you have to pull by yourself." Li Hao: "No problem, send me the address, I'll drive over and get it later." After the negotiations, Li Hao did not delay much. The metal factory was on the outskirts of the city, just 5 kilometers away. If you drive, you'll be there in no time. But you have to get a delivery vehicle. The load of radiation-proof snowmobiles is still too small. A car can only carry a maximum of 600 pounds. Even if there are 5, they can only transport 3,000 yen at a time. And 50 tons of metal is a full 100,000 katas, transported by 5 radiation-proof snowmobiles. When will it be transported? Thinking so, Li Hao walked towards the industrial workshop. Chapter 17: Transformation of Nuclear Battery Heavy-Duty Trucks. Underground Shelters, Industrial Workshops. Li Hao came to the Super 3D printer, opened the Doomsday Tech Mall attached to the system, and began to screen his required transportation vehicles. Skipping the high-end cargo of the anti-gravity truck, Li Hao locked his eyes on a large black and white truck. Nuclear battery heavy truck capacity: 60 tons, speed up to 180 kilometers per hour at reduction. This is a heavy-duty truck with nuclear batteries as energy, no need to charge. The internal power supply can drive heavy-duty trucks for hundreds of years. Good stuff. Buy it and use it for hundreds of years. But now that there's ice and snow on the ground and high-intensity radiation, this car has a large load and does not need to be charged, but it is somewhat unsuitable. Li Hao frowned slightly, a little depressed. Suddenly, as if thinking of something, he silently said in his heart, "System, can you transform this nuclear battery heavy-duty truck to increase the anti-radiation and cold-proof functions?" System: "Yes. However, more additional points are required to purchase, or metals with such functional properties may need to be provided, reducing the points required for the material part of the modified vehicle." Very good. How many points does a modified nuclear battery heavy-duty van cost? System: 2,800 points. What about providing radiation-proof alloys? System: 500 points are reduced for 3 tons of radiation-resistant alloys that provide the modification of nuclear battery heavy-duty trucks. Hearing this, Li Hao's eyes suddenly lit up. The low-temperature defense alloy with cold insulation function is not currently available. But there's no need for radiation-proof alloy synthesized by metal titanium, but he has a lot of reserves. Even if it is less than 3 tons, the automated metal furnace can be turned on to continue manufacturing. Thinking of this, Li Hao immediately began to act. Enter the metal warehouse and count all the radiation-resistant alloys, only 1.5 tons, 3 tons away, half short. After confirming the difference, Li Hao immediately turned on the automated metal furnace, selected the radiation-proof alloy option, and entered 1.5 tons on the production volume. Click OK. The automated metal newly furnace hummed and began to run at breakneck speed. Pieces of black-purple radiation-proof alloy plates were manufactured. After about 3 hours, all 1.5 tons of radiation-resistant alloy were manufactured. These baked radiation-resistant alloys are stacked with the 1.5 tons of radiation-resistant alloys previously stocked. System: purchase of a nuclear battery heavy-duty van with radiation and cold protection functions. Li Hao spoke. Ding. Is it submitted that the material that meets the requirements for the functional modification of nuclear battery heavy-duty trucks, radiation protection alloy, is detected? Submit. Li Hao said without hesitation. Ding. After deducting 2,300 points, the nuclear battery heavy-duty truck, modified version, has been placed in the host inventory. Now that the delivery vehicle is available, it's almost time to go. Li Hao called the 4 clones, including No. 1, and turned and walked towards the outside of the shelter. Opening the double gate of the shelter, Li Hao and the others came to the ground. Remove the nuclear battery heavy truck, modified version, from the system inventory. The next moment, a huge heavy-duty truck appeared in front of Li Hao's eyes. Number 1 took the driver's seat and started the behemoth-like van. Follow the address given by Li Hao and head southeast. The metal factory owner's shelter is located 5 kilometers away on Dinshan Road. Drive from here to there. It's not far away. Even if the road conditions are poor, it only takes about 10 or 20 minutes. It's 13 o'clock, and it should be 3 days before the sun shines. However, the sky was always gray and dusty, and only a few areas had sunlight reaching the ground. Sitting in the passenger seat of the nuclear battery heavy-duty truck, Li Hao looked at the sky outside, and his face was slightly startled. The volcanic dust pollution that was previously speculated in the news seems to have appeared. And the number of erupting volcanoes is not small. Otherwise, it would be impossible to affect the sky above Shanghai City. You know, there are no large volcanoes around Shanghai City. The rate at which the weather is getting colder has accelerated. The cold barrier of the shelter must be completed as soon as possible. This situation had been anticipated before, and Li Hao did not bother too much. Anyway, as long as the trip goes well, the cold protection layer of the shelter will be completed soon. There is no fear of such weather changes. At best, it becomes more inconvenient to travel. Driving to the end of Anbai Road, the nuclear battery heavy-duty truck drove towards Tinshan Road. Along the way, Li Hao also saw some survivors. Enter the Tinshan Road industrial zone. This area is the cradle of industry. Roads are built in all directions, and there are many vehicles coming and going in the past. After the apocalypse, there are naturally no fewer abandoned vehicles on this road. For the sake of stability, no one also reduced the speed of the nuclear battery heavy-duty truck. However, right now, at the turn of the intersection ahead, a dozen abandoned cars blocked the intersection. Bang! Seeing this, no one braked sharply, so that the nuclear battery heavy truck stopped. What's going on? Li Hao frowned. Turn your head and look in the rear view mirror. At some point, the road behind the truck with heavy nuclear batteries has been blocked by 5 cars. 8 or 9 young men were carrying fire axes and knives towards this side. Robbery. After the global disaster, all the cows, ghosts, snakes and gods really came out. Seeing this, Li Hao showed a sneer on his face. Opening the storage compartment, Li Hao took out 4 M19 assault rifles that emitted at cold metallic glowy. Chapter 18 Unfunded Business. Ha ha ha. Finally came a big fat sheep. Cowan showed a sinister smile on his face and led the other youths towards the big truck. Their purpose is straightforward. It's road blocking. Block nearby key intersections with abandoned vehicles, and whenever someone drives over, they block the back road of oncoming cars. Relying on this method, they gained a lot and robbed a lot of good things. This truck is so big, it looks like a cow bee, and there are definitely a lot of good things in it. Coming to the side of the truck, the younger brothers were also quite excited, and their eyes were full of greed. Hearing this, Cowan moved in his heart and spoke. You guys pay attention, don't damage the labor management. With this big truck, it will be much easier for us to block the back roads of other cars in the future. No problem, Brother Ann. This big truck will be ours from now on. Hurry up. After cleaning up the people in the car, we can also go back to eat quickly. There are definitely no more than 4 people in the car, and our brothers can drive them away if they scare them casually. Everyone spoke. This group of young people is just a group of gangsters, not those ruthless people who really mess with the underworld. In peacetime, they steal chickens and dogs. When the global catastrophe struck, the group, wanting freedom and not being subject to official shelters, came together and built a shelter of their own. Of course, it is more appropriate to say that it is a shelter, but in fact, it is a basement. Material and facilities are extremely lacking. Therefore, they started at Crooked Brain and decided to start a no-money business, blocking the road. Don't say it. Relying on this sale, their gains are really quite rich. Tasting the sweetness of roadblocks, these people are even more rampant. Almost every vehicle passing through this area is stopped by them. Ah, Fen. Open the door. Cowan said to the short young man behind him. No problem, Brother Ann, you'll see. Feng smiled, took out a wire and began to pry that toward the truck. As a thief who has been a professional lockpicker for 10 years, he has great confidence in his craft. It is just a big truck. Although it looks very advanced, how can a lot differ from other cars? His shot must have been hand-to-hand. However, after a few minutes, Feng's face no longer had this confidence. His forehead gradually began to sweat, and his face was full of disbelief. What the hell is this? Why can't it be opened? What's going on? Swallow slowly. Cowan was a little dissatisfied. It's not that I don't want to open it, it's that I really can't open it. The door of this truck is really evil. I've never seen this kind of door lock. Feng said with a wry smile. Waste, I can't even open a car door lock. Wasted labor time. Cowan said dissatisfied. Immediately, he slammed the window with the car and shouted. The people inside, hurry up and open the door and come out, otherwise we won't be so good to talk later. The little brother next to him also cooperated very well with a fire axe and knife to smash it on the car door, creating psychological pressure on the people in the car. This kind of thing has long been familiar to them these days. Time tested. However, the trick seems to have failed today. The people in the car didn't seem to pay attention to them at all. The door didn't mean to open at all. Find something for labor management, pry open this damn car door. Seeing this, Cowan was also a little impatient. Right now. Scold. The window slowly falls. Seeing this, everyone's faces suddenly showed excited smiles, thinking that the threat just now had an effect. However, in the next second, the excitement on their faces all disappeared, and they froze in place. The muzzles of the 4 assault rifles were pointed directly at them, as if they could fire countless deadly bullets at any time. Great, big brother, misunderstanding, it was all a misunderstanding just now. Other, don't shoot, have something to say. Feeling the muzzle of the gun on his head, Cowan was sweating profusely, and only felt a rush of urine rushing to his heart. Can't you fight the robbery yet? Li Hao shook the assault rifle in his hand, with a hint of teasing on his face, and spoke. Don't dare. Don't dare. Feeling the cold barrel changing around on his brain, Cowan felt that his urine suddenly could no longer be stopped, gushing out. What smell? Hurry up and get away, go to the wall and hold your head and stand up. Smelling the strange smell coming from Cowan's body, Li Hao's face turned dark, and he said coldly. Hearing this, several people did not dare to resist, and they dropped the weapons in their hands and faced the wall with their heads in their hands. Let the clone warriors watch these people with guns. Li Hao got out of the car and came to the intersection ahead to check. Grass. These grandchildren really lack morality. Even if they block the road with abandoned cars, they also won't load the wheels of these cars, and they can't push them away. Chapter 19 Radiation Sickness. Inferior radiation protection clothing. Looking at the abandoned car in front of him without wheels, Li Hao's face turned black. This trick is disgusting. Without wheels, it can only be carried by manpower and machines. But he didn't have such a handling machine in his car. To remove these abandoned cars without wheels, it is obvious that only manpower can be relied upon. Thinking of the time wasted to move the abandoned car later, Li Hao also felt a little headache, and glared at Cowan and the others. The purpose of this group of people in doing this, he naturally knew at a glance. It's just a matter of wanting to block the way and rob the road. There are many such things in peacetime, but most of them occur on remote roads. This kind of place is high and far away, and after the robbery, it immediately slips away. It is also difficult to catch them and those who enforce the law. However, no one with cerebral palsy would be so capable of doing so in urban areas. And now after the global disaster, these gangsters, with sometimes knives and fire axes, dare to directly intercept vehicles in the urban area and block the road and rob. I don't know if they swelled or had cerebral palsy. Troubled times with heavy cannons. Once caught by the authorities, it is definitely the end of eating guns. Say it. I've caused me so much trouble, how do you want to die? Seeing the trouble these guys caused to himself, Li Hao was also very unhappy in his heart, patting these people's heads and asking. Spare your life. Big brother, spare your life. We won't dare next time. Spare our lives! ! We really didn't mean to cause you trouble, you just let us go like a fart, and give you all the things we grabbed before. Hearing Li Hao's murderous words, these gangsters were about to be scared to pee. Completely without the previous rampant and arrogant. The deterrent power of 4 assault rifles is too great. Li Hao didn't ask, and these people sold everything they had in order to survive. From this, Li Hao felt the surprise of these people's brain circuits. In the face of global catastrophe, these people thought of freedom, not being subject to official control, and building a shelter of their own. This is simply not knowing how to write dead words. This is a global catastrophe, a crisis in which the entire human civilization could perish. Even government officials are trying their best to save themselves and find a way to survive. These people do not have the strength and are not yet willing to enter official shelters. Without perfect medical care and means of production, they cannot resist a slightly larger crisis. In fact, without the system, he himself would have gone to official shelters long ago, rather than choosing to build his own personal shelters to survive. After all, the improvement of official shelter technology and means of production is extremely difficult to compare with ordinary shelters, and the ability to resist risks is much higher than that of ordinary individual shelters, and the probability of survival is higher. It's really a group of brain dead, no ability to still be so inflated. Li Hao thought speechlessly. At the same time, he didn't want to talk nonsense with these brains anymore, and was ready to let the clone warriors shoot these people directly. However, right now, Li Hao found that the young man in front of him seemed to have some white spots on his ears, and if he didn't pay attention to look closely, he couldn't find it at all. This is radiation sickness. White spots continue to spread. Although it doesn't seem to be fast, it doesn't mean to stop at all. If this continues, the young man's ears will soon be occupied by this white spot until it spreads throughout his body. Groove. Thinking of this, Li Hao's heart was also full of chills, and he couldn't help but swallow his saliva. Although I don't know what the consequences of this white spot occupying the whole body will be, it will obviously not be a good thing. These cerebral palsy even buy inferior goods for radiation protection clothing, and they deserve to die. Upon closer inspection, Li Hao found that the radiation protection suits of these people were all inferior products. These inferior radiation protection suits are made from a low-end version of radiation protection clothing. Before the end of the world, humans predicted the strong radiation of meteorite falls may cause, and radiation protection suits suddenly became a hot commodity in short supply. Under such circumstances, some merchants see business opportunities and directly imitate radiation protection clothing for sale. These imitation radiation protection suits are far less resistant to radiation than the original, and the material is also quite fragile and prone to loopholes. However, compared with genuine radiation protection clothing, the price of these inferior products has also been reduced by more than one grade. Therefore, once launched, it was very popular. Many greedy and cheap people, holding a flute mentality, buy such inferior radiation protection clothing. What a bunch of brainless fools. Seeing this, Li Hao also couldn't help but scold. Wearing this inferior radiation protection suit in the current high radiation environment, I really think that I don't die fast enough. Yes. We're all stupid, we're all cerebral palsy. Brother, don't be familiar with us. We won't block the road and rob in the future, let us go! We know it's wrong. We are fools. Not knowing that he was dying, Cowan and the others heard Li Hao scolding, but they nodded madly, slapped themselves, and prayed for a chance to live from Li Hao. Seeing this, Li Hao thought for a moment, and then said coldly, "It's not impossible to let you go. As long as you hand over all the materials you have stolen to me, I will let you live." Yes. No problem, we'll get it to you right away. Cowan and the others quickly nodded, afraid that Li Hao would repent. Their shelter was in Kari, the basement of a supermarket 100 meters away. Under the threat of the clone warrior holding an assault rifle, Cowan and the others very quickly got all the materials in their shelter. 20 boxes of instant noodles of various flavors, as well as bags of rice, boxes of ham sausages and canned food. Carrying all these things to large trucks, Li Hao had them work as coolies, cleaning up that dozen or so abandoned cars without wheels in front of the intersection. It took about an hour for all the abandoned cars in front of the intersection to be cleaned up. After doing this, Li Hao let them go. Determining that Li Hao did not mean to kill them, Cowan and the others were afraid that Li Hao would regret it, and quickly ran towards the distance. He soon disappeared before Li Hao's eyes. Chapter 20: Consequences of Radiation Sickness, Detachment of Flesh. After thinking that they were far away from Li Hao and the others, Cowan and the others stopped and completely relaxed. Right now. Wow. The materials we worked so hard to grab for so many days were all in vain. A sharp-built young man spoke indignantly. We have no food now, and if we stay outside, we will have to starve to death. Or go to an official shelter. Opfeng suggested. Hearing this, others were also a little moved. This experience of hovering on the edge of life and death made them retreat in their hearts, and they did not want to continue to wander outside and play for their lives. Seeking asylum in official shelters may be a good option. You idiot. Didn't you read what was said on the news? The official shelter cultivated by our Shanghai city has been affected by giant meteorite fragments, and most of it has been destroyed, and it is impossible to take us in. Cowan slapped Opfeng's head and scolded. Hearing this, the minds of several people suddenly seemed to be poured with a basin of cold water. But now we have nothing to eat. If we continue like this, we will only starve to death. Brother An, what can you do without? A young man asked hopefully. Why not? We don't go to official shelters, we go to corporate shelters built at the An steel mill. Cowan said his thoughts. Corporate sanctuary. Those corporate shelters are all private, how can we join? Several people were puzzled in their hearts. It's naturally impossible for other corporate shelters to let us join. But the An steel mill is different. My uncle is the senior management of the An steel mill, and he has a lot of shares in his hands, and if nothing else, it is not a problem for us to join the An vault. Cowan said proudly. Hearing this, several people were also very moved and agreed. However, right now, the young man with white spots on his ears suddenly felt a little uncomfortable in his ears, and suddenly couldn't help but reach out to scratch them. Rip and pull. This scratch was even more like grabbing tofu, and directly grabbed the skin. Wow. What's going on? Under the severe pain, the young man immediately couldn't help but curse angrily. However, when he looked at his palm and saw what had just happened, he suddenly let out a terrified scream. Who is he? What are you ghostly called for no reason? Several people who were discussing the matter of going to Anan's shelter turned around and said dissatisfied. Uzi looked terrified, did not speak, trembled and handed the things in his hand to several people. I just scratched my ears, the skin. The skin fell directly. It's down. Looking at the ear skin of the tiger's hands covered with white spots and like rotting flesh, a chill rose in the hearts of several people. It's so weird. They've never seen this disease. Wow. What the hell is this? It can't be a skin disease, can a ? Farv's skin disease. What skin disease can be made like this? Tickling will scratch the skin off. It won't be a virus mutated after a global disaster, right? Don't care so much, let's hurry to the AN shelter and let the doctor help Uzi check it. Several people open their mouths, as if venting the fear in their hearts. What they didn't know is that on a small building about 10 meters away, Li Hao was observing them with no one since the fall of giant meteorites, which caused a global disaster, nuclear leaks and strong radiation brought by meteorites have made the radiation index of the entire blue star quite high. In such an environment, humans must wear radiation protection clothing when they go out. Otherwise, the body exposed to such a high radiation environment will definitely not live for more than an hour. Even in some areas with extremely high radiation levels, humans die in less than 30 seconds. This is a complete collapse mutation at the genetic level. Just like the radiation documentary, the radiation turtle with 3 or 4 heads often appears, and the radiation dog with many tails. Of course, as long as it is a smart person with a normal brain, he will try his best to get a regular and qualified radiation protection suit, and it is impossible to expose himself to radiation air. Such a superb fool as these gangsters is still rare after all. The symptoms of this radiation sickness are really creepy. Observing Kao and several people, Li Hao's tone was a little heavy. The reason why he came with him, in addition to preparing to solve the future problems, was also to observe what would happen if he had the leukoplastic radiation sickness, but he did not expect to see such a terrifying scene. A layer of skin detached so easily. Doesn't that mean that when these white spots cover the whole body, the skin of the whole body will fall directly like a layer of clothing? At that time, the flesh and blood and internal organs in the body of the person with medium disease will be directly exposed. Thinking of this creepy horror picture, Li Hao immediately felt a chill in his heart. This is Nama. It's terrifying. Even if you can survive, it is better to live than to die, and you will become like a ghost. It is better to die 100. Just as Li Hao pondered the horrific consequences of this leukoplastic radiation sickness, the young man who scratched the skin off his ears changed again. I saw that he suddenly fell, and his eyes began to gradually turn red. I can't breathe, it's itchy. Good. Uncomfortable, the tiger lay on the ground and struggled. And at the moment, several people around him were also about to be scared to pee again. The white marks on his ears seemed to come to life, spreading throughout his body at a speed visible to the naked eye. Tiger, Uzi, what the hell is wrong with you? Fan, who was closest to Uzi, his body trembled, and he climbed backwards with a terrifying chill. The changes in Uzi is too weird and terrifying. It's hard to understand. The skin is so itchy. Good. Itchy. Uzi opened his mouth intermittently, and his face had gradually turned strange gray-white. Small upstairs. Seeing this scene, Li Hao couldn't help but change his face. How could it break out so quickly? The white spot before obviously covered one of the young man's ears. Now it is so quickly all over his body. Perhaps the young man scratched off the skin of his ears, and the radiation in the air shot directly into the flesh and blood, and a large amount entered the body, so it directly aggravated the radiation sickness on his body, causing the rapid spread of the radiation sickness infection area. Recalling the previous scene, Li Hao speculated thoughtfully. Right now. Chapter 21. Complete the transaction. Railroad reconstruction work. Laugh at. The tiger, who fell to the ground, began to scratch his skin frantically. I saw that his hand gently grasped it, and the skin on his body fell off like clothes. Blood is flying. The whole picture is like a ghost peeling its skin, and the blood is terrifying to the extreme. Until he stripped off the skin of his whole body and became a bloody person covered in flesh, blood vessels, and internal organs exposed, it was as if he had lost his strength, and he fell heavily to the ground, and his flesh and blood were shattered. Ghost. What the hell is this ? Gag. It's disgusting. Seeing the terrifying picture of blood flying and flesh and skin separated, several people screamed and were about to be frightened and stupid. Stay in place and don't dare to move, or your legs are too soft to move. Let the blood fall on you. Seeing the shock, Li Hao seemed to think of something and quickly looked towards the other people. Those who were drenched in blood also seemed to have white spots on their bodies, just like the young man had before. This weird radiation sickness can even be transmitted through blood. Li Hao's heart was shocked, and he suddenly lost the mind to continue to stay and observe. If you accidentally contract this weird radiation sickness, it will really be the end of the cap. Calling no 1. Li Hao immediately turned and left, ignoring the gangsters. In his eyes, these gangsters infected with this strange radiation sickness are already a group of dead people. There is no need for him to make a move. Back to the big van. No. 1 started the nuclear battery heavy-duty truck and quickly left here. After completely staying away from the weird radiation sickness, Li Hao immediately breathed a sigh of relief. About 10 minutes later, he came to a metal factory in the eastern area of the Tianjin Road industrial zone. The metal factory was the same one he had previously purchased to replace the walls of his underground shelter. The metal factory owner's shelter was built here. However, the metal factory at this time was very different from the original. The original factory area was connected to the surrounding factory area, expanding more than 10 times, and directly occupying all of this industrial zone. A fine and sharp iron mesh surrounds the entire factory wall. The large iron gate at the door is closed, and several security guards in radiation protection suits are vigilantly guarding the door to prevent others from entering. This connected factory area should be a refuge made by the owners of these factory areas. Li Hao thought thoughtfully. Those factory owners are clearly not fools. Under the strong alliance. With the sturdiness and high industrial level of the factory building, the shelter they jointly built is definitely not bad. Perhaps not even inferior to official shelters. In the metal factory owner can let those factory owners build shelters around his factory area, which is obviously not simple. However, the metal factory owner is not simple, and Li Hao does not care. This has nothing to do with him. He was just here to buy rare metals. Taking out his phone, Li Hao began contacting the metal factory owner. Li Hao. Boss Yang, I have arrived at the door of your factory and can start trading. Metal factory owner. So fast. Okay, I'll come out right away. 20 tons of titanium, 30 tons of other rare metals are ready. I'll ask the security guard to open the door later. You go directly to the metal warehouse where you came before. I'll wait for you there. Li Hao. Okay. End this communication. Li Hao waited at the door. Sure enough, about a minute later, the big iron gate at the entrance of the factory opened. Seeing this, Li Hao did not hesitate and let no one drive the nuclear battery heavy-duty truck inside. Came to the metal warehouse on the factory site. The door of the metal warehouse also opened, and 3 people wearing radiation protection suits walked out of it. Dude, you're finally here. The person with sunglasses at the head saw Li Hao, smiled, and strode up. Boss Yang, long time no see. Li Hao got out of the car and met the opposite side. After some pleasantries, the two sides did not have ink and began trading directly. 4 clones and 2 others drive a forklift to transport metal ingots from a metal warehouse to a nuclear battery heavy-duty truck. After emptying all the ingots in this metal warehouse, 20 tons of titanium and 30 tons of rare metals have all arrived in Li Hao's car. Subsequently, Li Hao also handed over the 500 kilograms of rice to the metal factory owner as promised. To clear money. Boss Yang, I'll go first. Getting the metal resources he urgently needs. Li Hao's mood is also quite good. Brother, why go in such a hurry? Do you want to go and sit in my shelter? Let the other 2 people take the rice away, Boss Yang said politely. Nope. It's not early, and it's too late if you don't go back. Li Hao declined with a smile. Guarding against others is essential. Although these 2 transactions with this Boss Yang were very pleasant, the friendship between them was actually not deep, and there was not much foundation of trust. Okay then, I wish you a good journey, dude. Not caring about Li Hao's polite refusal, Boss Yang said with a smile. Farewell to both sides. Li Hao and 4 clone warriors returned to the nuclear battery heavy truck. Start the nuclear battery heavy-duty van. Li Hao and the others soon left the metal factory and walked back towards the road they had come from. On the way back, it was getting dark. Bored, Li Hao took out his tablet and began to browse the latest news information. One of the seemingly inconspicuous pieces of government engineering caught Li Hao's attention. Penguin News. The government expects to rebuild the national railways and resume national railway transportation for the transfer of materials and the rescue of personnel. Railway reconstruction. Li Hao frowned. This is no small matter. If nothing else, just repairing the railroad damaged by meteorites is a considerable amount of engineering. Not to mention, after the giant meteorite fell, the blue star environment became quite harsh. This made it rebuild several orders of magnitude more difficult to the railway. If it is only for material transfer and personnel assistance, there should be no need to be in such a hurry. It's better to clean the road than to clean it directly. It's a little easier. There's something wrong with that. The government should have other intentions for doing this. Thinking so, Li Hao continued to query the relevant news. About 10 minutes later, Li Hao locked onto a news item from 3 days ago. Found it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novellas. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 22 Ocean Era. 1. To use the railway reconstruction plan has been implemented, and the main reconstruction areas of the first phase of the railway are Jiangbai, Tian, Qindu, Sala, and the northern Tibetan Plateau. 1. News. The government expects to build more than 10 super-large shelters on the plateau to rescue the affected people. This is. Seeing these two news messages, Li Hao seemed to think of something, and his heart was solemn. He roughly guessed the intentions under the government's railway reconstruction plan. Governments may be preventing certain natural disasters that may occur in the future. The government's railway reconstruction plan is part of the government's prevention efforts. The ultimate goal should be to improve the efficiency of material transportation and speed up the construction of super-large shelters on the plateau. What natural disaster needs to hide on the plateau? Li Hao thought in his heart, and his heart flashed. It could be a big tsunami. But what a tsunami it takes to hide in the highlands. You must know that Xiago is a landlocked country. Unless it is the kind of super tsunami that engulfed the continent in ancient times, it is difficult to threaten the Xia kingdom. It won't be true, will it? If it was a global catastrophe, he would not have believed that Blue Star would have such a large tsunami. But now, I really can't say for sure. After all, the 30-kilometer giant meteorite hit Blue Star. What else is impossible? In the next second, all continents were swallowed up by the ocean, returning to the ancient era of the ocean, he believed. Forget it. It is useless to think too much. Although it was uneasy in his heart, his guess was only a guess at the moment. There's no need to scare yourself. Besides, even if his guess didn't, he couldn't change anything. The one who should come is still coming. Now it's good to have a number in mind. Anyway, as long as he gets enough black technology from the system. Even if the world enters the ocean era, he can live well. Thinking of this, Li Hao's confidence in his heart suddenly became a lot. No longer thinking about it, Li Hao entered a forum to communicate with other netizens and relax. The way back was very smooth. There were no more people who stood in the way. After all, there were still very few people as brain dead as these gangsters. About 20 minutes later, Li Hao returned to his underground shelter. No. 1. Take a few clones to unload all the rare metals on the nuclear battery heavy-duty truck and put them in the metal storage warehouse. Close the double alloy door of the shelter. Li Hao was ready to take a break. Today, I changed the rare metal that was urgently needed in the shelter, but it was too late. He plans to put the rest of the underground shelter's cold shield until tomorrow. Cooked a bowl of noodles. After eating, Li Hao went to the fitness room to exercise, dissipated food, and washed and slept. In a dark alley, Li Hao walked inside, feeling the cold of the air, and couldn't help but shiver. At this moment, two strange bloody people suddenly appeared in front of them. The fascia, blood vessels, blood and flesh are all exposed to the air, like ghosts. As if they had discovered him, the two bloody men threw themselves at him with a roar. Groove. Seeing this, Li Hao burst into a foul language, turned around and ran without hesitation. However, no matter how he ran, he couldn't shake off the bloody man behind him. The number of blood people is also increasing, until there were so many of them that they completely surrounded him, leaving him with nowhere to escape. Surrounded by countless bloody people in the center, Li Hao's heart was beating wildly and he was drenched in cold sweat. In the next second, all the bloody people rushed forward and pounced on him. The smell of blood came over the face. Ugh. Li Hao suddenly sat up from the bed and took a big breath to calm his beating heart. It turned out to be a dream. Coming to his senses, Li Hao scratched his hair. Picking up the mobile phone on the bedside table at hand, I found that it was already 10 o'clock in the afternoon. I slept long enough. Getting out of bed, Li Hao only felt that his stomach was already growing with hunger. After washing. So, how did radiation sickness appear, and why is it so different from normal radiation sickness? Not only the symptoms are strange, but also can be transmitted through the blood, just like a virus. Li Hao thought while cooking instant noodles. But no matter how he thinks about it, there is no accurate answer to this question. He had too little knowledge about radiation in his field of knowledge. It is obviously impossible to understand such a strange radiation sickness. After a while, Li Hao also gave up thinking about this for the time being. Anyway, now this radiation sickness cannot be transmitted to him. Let's wait until you get the relevant black technology in the future and continue to study this issue. After eating, Li Hao also started today's work. The low-temperature defense alloy plate that makes the cold protection layer was produced yesterday. With few clones as coolies, Li Hao spent an afternoon finally completing the last 20th of the construction of the cold protection layer. Chapter 23 Water turns into oil manufacturing equipment. It's finally done. Welding the last hole onto the cryogenic defense alloy plate, Li Hao nodded in satisfaction. With this layer of cold protection, even if the surface temperature drops to minus 150 degrees, the temperature of the underground shelter will not change in any way. By the way, I haven't seen yesterday's points settled yet. Putting the welding tools away in the toolbox, Li Hao went to the sofa in the living room and opened the system's task log. Doomsday Survival, Long-Term Mission. Today's mission reward settlement completed. Survival Performance. You complete the daily maintenance of the underground shelter with plus 50 points. You find that the rare metals in the shelter are running out, and decide to exchange food and metal factory owners for rare metals with plus 100 points. You get a heavy-duty truck with enough energy for 100 years of nuclear batteries. Plus 100 points. You need a gang of gangsters who stand in the way, and through them, you discover a very strange radiation sickness that can be transmitted through blood. With plus 500 points, you successfully switch to 50 tons of rare metals, solve the problem of rare metal scarcity in the shelter, and earn plus 1,000 points. When you are bored reading the news, you accidentally discover that the country has begun to build a railway directly to the plateau area. You feel that there is something wrong, and you find that there may be a crisis in the future. Points plus 1,500. You eat 3 meals a day, steadily consume energy, and maintain a balanced body nutrition. Plus 20 points. You go into a deep sleep, refreshed, and the physical energy consumed yesterday is fully restored. Plus 30 points. Congratulations to the host for earning 3,700 points. Not bad. Yesterday I got 3,700 points in one day. Li Hao nodded slightly. These days, he has also accumulated a lot of points in his hands. With more points in his pocket, Li Hao also had a lot of ideas in his mind. For example, buy some advanced technology in the system mall to upgrade the facilities of the shelter. After all, shelter security is sufficient at the moment, but there's still a lot to be desired. For example, energy. The power generation room in the shelter now uses diesel generators. Not only is diesel consumption extremely large, but its power generation efficiency is also pitifully low. With more and more black technology equipment and increasing power consumption, this diesel generator obviously needs to be eliminated and replaced with more advanced power generation equipment. Li Hao took a fancy to a device called Small High Energy Oil Power Generation Base Station in the mall. The power generation efficiency of this equipment is at least 1,000 times higher than that of diesel generators. And it's still oil-based. It can also be matched with the artificial petroleum synthesis technology obtained after completing the energy reserve task. However, this set of equipment requires 7,000 points. I only have 6,400 points now. Let's buy it in a few days. Now, let's get the equipment required for artificial petroleum synthesis technology first. The energy reserve task was completed as early as 10 days ago. However, because he did not use the means of petroleum, he did not mean to take out the artificial petroleum synthesis technology. As a result, the technology remains in his system inventory. Now it's time to take it out. Thinking so, Li Hao strode towards the industrial workshop. Remove from the artificial petroleum synthesis technology in the system inventory. The drawings of the equipment part are entered into the drawing library of the Super 3D printer bid. Then, click production. With the start of the machine tool, one by one the peculiar parts are rapidly. After about 15 minutes, a machine shaped like a large drum comes off the tracks of the machine. Li Hao opens the device's properties panel. Petroleum manufacturing equipment output. 1,000 liters of oil/hour. Introduction. This is a low-level material conversion equipment that can convert water into artificial oil. Note: artificial oil is no different from natural oil. Groove. Li Hao's face also showed a hint of incredulity. Turn water into oil. This number is magic. Such a powerful technology. If this is placed before the end times, I am afraid that he can become the richest man in the world just by selling oil. The equipment was transported from the industrial workshop to an empty room next to the water source clean room. Li Hao then connected the water inlet of the device to the water reservoir in the water source purification room. Start the device. Multiply. Multiply. The lights on the cylindrical device light up to indicate that the device is working normally. Then, under Li Hao's gaze, the water in the central barrel of the device turned black at a speed visible to the naked eye, becoming precious oil. With this equipment, as long as there is still water, the energy of the shelter will never run out in the future. Looking back, Li Hao was also a little surprised. Although he had been prepared in his heart, he was still very shocked when the water really turned into oil. The scene was nothing short of miraculous. After connecting the oil outlet of the oil manufacturing unit to a large oil tank with a long pipe for storage, Li Hao, who found that he had nothing to do, decided to take a day off today. Call the 3 sisters of the Zhao family who have completed the crop care work, and the 4 of them play online games together to pass the time. As for the clone warriors, don't make trouble. As a fighter who can only fight skills, it is obviously impossible to play games. From here, you can see the benefits of taking in the 3 sisters of the Zhao family. Not only do you have 3 more people to share the work, but you can also temporarily act as a beautiful woman to play, which is simply not too cool. In a pleasant game, the time of the day passed like this. December 12, 2020. Today's the shopping carnival. If it were still in peacetime, hundreds of millions of people would log on to major online shopping platforms today to chop their hands and spend. However, with global catastrophe and global productivity plummeting, it is clear that this is a thing of the past. Without home delivery, without abundant goods, online shopping platforms can only disappear. Bored, Li Hao can only continue to play single-player games. December 13, 2020. Li Hao, who no longer wants to play games, began to brush the news and pay attention to the latest disaster news. Or chat and further with sand sculpture netizens on the forum. December 14, 2020. The points for purchasing equipment for small high-energy oil-fired power generation base stations have finally been saved. Without hesitation, Li Hao bought it directly and replaced the 5 diesel generators in the power room. At this moment, the oil produced by the previous oil manufacturing equipment has finally come in handy. Chapter 24. Super cold. The Ice Age is coming. December 15, 2020. The system publishes a new task. Farm construction mission description. The day when the meat food is finally eaten, without stable protein intake, the human body will gradually become weak. Ask the host to build a chicken and duck farm to provide meat for underground shelters. Mission rewards. Fast-growing earthworms can accelerate the growth of chickens and ducks and increase their nutritional value. In order to accomplish this task, Li Hao decided to post the purchase of chicken and duck seedlings on the trading forum on the internet. After all, the surface of the ground is now cold and scary. Whether it is chickens, ducks, or other animals, I am afraid that they will die a long time ago. It is impossible to pick it up for nothing. Of course, even if he could pick it up, he didn't dare to eat it. Those are all irradiated animals that have been exposed to radiation, and the radiation content in the body is absolutely high and scary. It may not be only in some shelters that unradiated chickens and ducks survive. That's why he put his hopes of accomplishing the task on trading forums. After the news was released, although this information attracted the attention of many people, no one traded. Obviously, there are very few people who have chicken and duck seedlings in their hands now. Under the global catastrophe, food shortages, who will feed these little things? I am afraid that most people will choose to directly slaughter and eat meat. As for how to supplement protein in the future, the official posted a vermiculture manual and eating method on the internet, just for this purpose. For a long time to come, earthworms will be the main source of protein for the vast majority of people. In a short period of time, I am afraid that this task will be difficult to complete. Knowing this, Li Hao shook his head and sighed. However, fortunately, his canned meat is still abundant, and he does not need to eat earthworms to supplement protein. Otherwise, he really couldn't stand it. December 16, 2020. Inside the vegetable planting room, the first batch of vegetables was harvested. Li Hao and Shazuki harvested and refrigerated the fresh vegetables together. With this batch of fresh vegetables, the food reserves of the underground shelter are once again much richer. December 17, 2020. Nothing. December 18, 2020. December 19, 2020. Time flies. In the blink of an eye, the time came to December 25.810:00. Li Hao comfortably eats potato chips from the pre-disaster tune while surfing the internet and chatting with sand sculpture netizens. Although the internet speed was slow, he still enjoyed it. It gave him a sense of returning to life before global catastrophe. However, next second, a news suddenly popped up on a computer web page. This is an official announcement issued in person. Warning. According to the monitoring of the remaining meteorological satellites in space, a super cold snap has appeared, sweeping the world. Please take warm precautions and major shelter to reduce damage. Super cold snap is coming. Li Hao frowned. This is not good news. According to the temperature tester, the temperature outside has now dropped to -30°. Then there's a super cold snap, and the temperature will definitely drop faster. In such a cruel environment, those simple shelters without cold insulation may be difficult to survive. People who freeze to death will definitely not be in the minority. Fortunately, I had expected that the cold layer of the shelter built with low-temperature defense metal would have no effect as long as it was not in ultra-low temperature below -150°. Li Hao's heart is solemn, and at the same time, he is also happy. Now the outside temperature is only -30°, which is far from the ultra-low temperature of -150°. However, the super cold snap is sweeping the world, so for the sake of caution, it is better to go out and redetect the temperature changes outside. If the temperature plummets too quickly, then you need to prepare the cold clothing you need to go out. After thinking about it, Li Hao put on a down jacket and a layer of radiation protection clothing, and walked towards the outside of the shelter. Get out of the shelter gate. Li Hao came to the surface and looked around. I saw that the outside weather changed from light snow before to goose feathers and heavy snow at this moment. The north wind howled. The white snowflakes flew as if to bury the world in ice. In such a pale environment, Li Hao's eyes could not even see through these snowflakes and see the scene 3 meters away. Hair fingers with poor visibility. Take out the temperature tester and turn it on 0 degrees, -10 degrees, -20 degrees, -30 degrees, 51 degrees. The temperature on the temperature tester showed a rapid drop, quickly crossing -30 to -51 degrees. And it was still falling at a fairly fast rate. Overnight, it dropped by 21 degrees. Li Hao's face changed. Although he does not know much about meteorology, he also knows that this super cold snap, which can reduce 21 degrees overnight, is absolutely extremely terrifying. Add to that the world's previous continued drop in temperature. The combination of the two is an impact on human civilization that is definitely not inferior to the giant meteorite fall. In other words, the second global catastrophe after the giant meteorite has begun. This time it's the ice catastrophe, the ice age. Microtherm. This extreme low temperature would wipe out almost all life on the surface. This is the complete destruction of the old biosphere. Even if humans don't take shelter with well-equipped measures against the cold. In less than 10 days, humanity will be completely extinct. Of course, the dumbest move. In human beings, as highly intelligent creatures, obviously cannot wait for death just like this. However, the impact of this natural disaster on human beings is undoubtedly huge. What the future holds for humanity, no one can tell. Thinking like this, Li Hao suddenly felt that his body was a little cold. It seems that this down jacket full of dung cannot stop the cold from the outside world. Feeling this, Li Hao was shocked in his heart and hurriedly retreated to the underground shelter. Confirming that he showed no signs of frostbite, Li Hao immediately breathed a sigh of relief. It seems that it is necessary to add an extra cold protection function to the anti-radiation life suit, otherwise it will really not be able to withstand this terrifying low temperature. Chapter 25 Radiation Protection Life Suit, Cold Protection Optimized Version. It seems that you need to add an extra cold protection function to the radiation protection subsistence suit! Otherwise, the low-level thermostatic device of the anti-radiation subsistence suit alone will really not be able to withstand this terrifying low temperature. Thinking like this, Li Hao walked into the industrial workshop and came to the super 3D printer bed. System, can you optimize the drawings of the radiation protection life support suit and add a cold protection function? Li Hao said silently in his heart. System, yes. But the more advanced the cold protection function, the more points you need. How many points do you need to resist the cold function of -150 degrees? After a deep groan, Li Hao spoke. According to the current trend, it is only a matter of time before the surface temperature drops to -100 degrees. I'll get the cold protection function to the extent that it can withstand -150 degrees insurance point. After all, there is only one small life. System. A total of 1,500 points is required. Buy it. Li Hao said without hesitation. During this period, he has accumulated a lot of points. A mere 1,500 points, for him, is completely trivial. Ding. After deducting 1,500 points, the radiation protection life support suit drawing, cold protection optimized version, has been placed in the host inventory. The drawing of the radiation protection life support suit, cold protection optimized, was taken out of the inventory and entered by Li Hao into the drawing library of the Super 3D printer bed. In the next second, on the display panel of the Super 3D printer bed, there was suddenly an additional branch option under the original radiation-proof life support suit, a cold-proof optimized version of the radiation-proof life support suit. Put all the required materials in it and click manufacture. 10 seconds later, a black real life-sustaining suit came down from the machine. Compared with the original life support suit, this life support suit with cold protection optimization is slightly thicker, and the synthetic material seems to have changed. The oxygen circulation device and the thermostat on the back have become much larger. Seeing these changes, Li Hao opened the property panel of this anti-cold optimized anti-radiation life support suit for the first time with anticipation. Radiation protection clothing, cold protection optimized version functional design. Radiation-proof outer clothing, cold-proof super fiber layer, oxygen circulation device, advanced constant temperature device introduction. This protective clothing for radiation protection and life support has been greatly optimized and improved in terms of cold protection and material strength. Not only comes with an advanced thermostatic device, built-in cold super fiber layer, can resist -150 degrees ultra-low temperature, but also can effectively prevent external attacks on the human body. Didn't he expect that upgrading the cold-proof function of the radiation-proof life support suit would have this kind of unexpected joy? Li Hao's eyes showed a hint of surprise. In addition to the super cold protection function that can withstand the ultra-low temperature of -150 degrees, the material of this protective suit has also been greatly improved on the original material. But think about it, this is actually a reasonable thing. After all, a material that can withstand ultra-low temperatures of -150 degrees Celsius is certainly extraordinary. Extreme toughness is essential. Otherwise, ordinary materials in an environment of -150 degrees would have been frozen into slat long ago. I wonder how defensive this superfiber material derived for cold protection is. Li Hao's eyes showed a hint of curiosity. Then, he took out a kitchen knife from the tool warehouse next to him and swiped the radiation protection suit. Under the kitchen knife cutting, Li Hao feels as if he is cutting running water, full of toughness. Not at all as fragile as ordinary fibrous materials. Taking the kitchen knife away, Li Hao found that there was no change on the surface of the new radiation protection life support suit, not even a single scratch. Very nice. It seems that it has almost absolute defensive power against sharp weapons such as kitchen knives. Li Hao nodded in satisfaction. With such a defense, the safety of his wearer is guaranteed. Radiation protection life support suits will not be inadvertently caused by external damage. After completing the test with a kitchen knife, Li Hao definitely gave the test a level. Test the limits of the new radiation protection suit against firearms with the M19 assault rifle. You know, the penetration of the 7.62mm general-purpose bullet is very strong. However, the final test results make Li Hao a little shocked. Not broken. In the face of the shooting of the M19 assault rifle, the surface of the new radiation protection life support suit was only marked with a dent, but it was not penetrated. This defense is comparable to those high-grade body armor. Of course, defense is defense, which does not mean that there is no damage. Although this bullet did not break the new radiation protection life support suit, the bullet brought powerful kinetic energy to the wearer's body, which is also difficult for humans to bear. But this kind of defense is enough. Li Hao does not care about such a flaw. After all, the defense of the performance of this new radiation protection suit has completely exceeded his expectations. As long as he puts a layer of special body armor on it. The combination of the two defenses is the shooting of the M19 assault rifle, and he is confident that it will block it without much damage. This good thing needs to be produced a few more pieces, and the old radiation protection life support suit should almost be eliminated. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.